di 4 ore di video. Vediamo se riesco già a farvelo vedere a schermo. Ok, di base è questa qua. Si parte già con Undertale naming easter eggs. All of God's betrayal kills. Ah. Neutral endings tragically underrated. Ah, Undertale was made. Mi metto un po' d'osso in sottofondo. Mi sento spoglio. Un po' più bassa. Questa mi appariva in home su YouTube un sacco di volte. Ten facts you don't know. Useless Undertale information. Ruins Gaster Eggs. Ok. Secret Rooms. Undertale Remembers. Undertale Gaster Secrets. Game Theorist. Madonna, pure d'ora, non me l'aspettavo. Ciao Alil. Buon pomeriggio. All Undertale songs are connected. Ma quanta roba. Più forte di te, parodia Undertale. Magari sono tutti music video. Non so se sia normale come roba, però nel dubbio. Come stai, Alil? Che mi racconti? Devo un po' sistemare la cam in tutto ciò, che aveva un angolo diverso dal solito. L'ho dovuta spostare per fare un colloquio di lavoro poco fa. Mi sembra che c'è qualcosa che non va, non mi piace da... No, non mi piace ancora. Ciao Cloud. Non mi piace. Così, forse... Questo è quello che succede quando muovo per una volta la cam e non mi ricordo più in che punto stava. Più o meno ci siamo, magari un po' più alta. Sì, ci siamo quasi, dai. Direi che ce la facciamo andare bene per... Forse un po' più sulla... destra, così. Non vuole essere nemico, Kirby con il cioccolato, voilà. Ecco poi. Devo andare a dormire, ma è apparsa una tua notifica, quindi eccomi qua. Ma se devi andare a dormire, fallo, non ti preoccupare per me. La salute prima di tutto, raga. Almeno la vostra, la mia. Come si dice? Expendable, non mi viene il nome in italiano. Vabbè, don't care. Siamo pronti, siamo carichi? Io ho un po' di sonno in tutto ciò, in realtà, effettivamente, però non dormo mai il pomeriggio. Ho appena finito un colloquio di lavoro. No, di lavoro, non sarebbe neanche di lavoro, sarebbe un colloquio di formazione, in realtà era abbastanza bene. Per questo ho fatto live un po' più tardi del solito. Sono coglione e masochista. Apprezzo. Se trovi roba che sai già o che si ripete in più, ovviamente skippa. E vado a sapere quando è che magari fino a dove posso skippare. Io dico incominciare. Queste sono tutte le Undertale naming easter eggs. Vediamo un po'. Flowey. I already chose that name. Va bene. Non lo faccio mai più. Papyrus. Questo l'ho già visto. Mi sa però. Nel dubbio faccio. Papyru. I'd allow it. È vero che non poteva metterlo per intero. Metto per 2, ma è tutto costatissimo poi con la velocità. Con l'audio. I think you should think your name, vabbè. Insomma. Nope. Temmi. Poi la musica mi sta dando già la testa, raga. You cannot. Go back. Undyne. You get your own name, va bene. La maggior parte sono tutti da 6 lettere. Don't do that. L'ho sentito anch'io, mi sa che era del... Murder. Mi sa che il tizio che ha fatto il video stava ricevendo comunque notifiche di Skype in sottofondo. O Skype o Facebook, uno dei due. That's a little on the nose. Isn't it? Murder. No, assolutamente non lo è. Abbiamo l'audio, però raga, i prossimi video li guardiamo a velocità normale. Anche Mercy. Ero convinto volesse mettere Matthew un attimino, mi sono cagato addosso. Gers. Chi cazzo è Gerson? Catty. Anche Brett immagino prova adesso. Like, ok, I guess. Ciao Revers. Ma Alfie è diverso da Alphys? BP Andrew. B Pants. B Pants. Escaping the bottom of the barrel. Ah, not very creative. Quanti cazzo sono? Jerry. Jerry. Va bene. Ah, è quello che vende gli hamburger. Ok. Was. Washwa. Prova Washwa, ok. Clean name. Minchia, va avanti ancora per 2 minuti così. Bluky. Poi to stop you. Quindi ti dovresti metterlo. Steve ha avviato Gary's Mod. Sto tizio stava letteralmente registrando l'intero PC. Shiren. Punto interrogativo. Aaron. Is this name correct? Ah, è di Dark Fury quello. Con l'occhiolino. The true name. Frisk. Warn, his name will make your life hell. Proceed anyway. Urca. Hard mode. Gazer. Gaster. Ah, mi sa che l'avevamo provato quello di Gaster. Che... Cos'è che faceva Gaster? Ti avviava il gioco in automatico e poi te lo faceva tornare qua? X Matthew. XXX. XXX. Oh, non penso fosse parte di Undertale quello, sai? Amico mio che hai provato a fare sta roba. Non credo. Non credo. Onestamente ne dubito altamente che fosse parte di Undertale quella roba. Mo ce lo vediamo a velocità normale, raga, frega niente. Ciao Poli. Off guard, betrayal kills. Non leggerò, raga, qua, ovviamente, quindi a gusto della vista. Qui probabilmente... Cioè fa tutto alla fine e poi appunto dà un colpo di grazia unico quando ha praticamente risparmiato ogni volta. Ma se non sono tagliati... Ok, sono tagliati, posso farlo. Ok, mi sa che posso anche vedere come è messo la cosa di YouTube a posto. Quindi qui dovrebbe esserci... Quindi fai spare fino alla fine. Probabilmente lo puoi fare quando... My most vulnerable moment. To think I was worried you wouldn't fit in up there. Madonna. Non sei diverso da loro. Quindi è una cosa che probabilmente puoi fare quando hai fatto lo spare fino alla fine. E poi quando diventa giallo che puoi fare la fine, almeno credo. Dai, lo colpisci. Quando manca solo uno spare. Ok. Scusate. I can see you shaking your boots. Grazie. Prepare inspiring you. Ok, quindi praticamente quando ha la possibilità tu fai il figlio di puttana e lo one shotti. Sport Papyrus. At least I still have my head. Ma non mi sembra che stia cambiando granché rispetto a quelli della Genocide, no? Vabbè, Toriel ha detto nei momenti in cui ero più vulnerabile, tipo... Oh, Shiren? Perché un mob normale? Ma che palle, cioè, ma è lo stesso tizio del video di prima, questo qui? Perché hanno tutti notifiche in sottofondo? Che fastidio! Ah, cazzo, raga, se dovete registrare almeno chiudete le applicazioni. The seats are sold out. Toss is clothing. Aggressive tooting. Oh, diventate più rapida? Pensa al proprio futuro. Madonna. Ok, qui la fight dura un po', mi pare. Qua si stanno denudando. But why? L'aveva fatto denudare. Quello stava facendo coming out. Doesn't know what to do. E quindi lo one-shottavi lo stesso. Madonna. Questo sapete che mi sa che l'avevo fatto, questa con i Muffet, perché appunto feci la fight, a un certo punto mi dissero, ah ok, vabbè, sei libero di andare. Non mi ricordo se avevo comprato la ciambellina nella mia primissima originale run, però questa volta, per quella volta lì mi pare di aver dato il colpo di grazia poi. Spider Side, quindi fa la stessa cosa, quindi tu mangi una delle cose loro. Non mi piace proprio come ho messo la camera adesso, che palle. Perdonatemi, ma il fatto di aver spostato la camera adesso mi ha completamente sminchiato la percezione di... Vabbè, lasceremo così, saranno i capelli. Fa caldo, sto sudato. I thought you hated spiders. Sparing you. E io qua appunto attaccai in tutta risposta. Dissi va fa mock. Il che fa? Lascia il fiorellino come fu quella volta lì? Eh sì. Molto triste. Ciao Dempsey. Your love increased. Uh. Ah no, per Sans devo fare tutta la fight, eh? Immagino, non stai perdendo. Senza sparing you. Ah, questo non avevamo già fatto questo? Get dunked. Cos'era sta roba? Bonus? Toy Betrayal Cruel Kill in Hard Mode. Ma scusa, perché l'hai velocizzato? Voglio vederlo normale. Ma che cazzo di playlist è? Ma perché? Ma scusami, che problema ha avuto il tizio mentre lo faceva? Ma che minchia di playlist mi hai mandato? Ciao Phantom. Spacing doing a passive run and do a quick 180. Vabbè, stiamo facendo tutti gli extra di Undead, abbiamo finito il giochino per la settima volta, quindi adesso tutto quello che non mi sono perso lo guardiamo qui prima di passare a Deltarune, perché non ho intenzione di riaprire il gioco fino un'altra singola volta. Lo faremo soltanto il 10 ottobre, quello sì. Il 10 ottobre faremo la boss fight rimanente. Quindi adesso Undertale, Neutral Endings, Tragedy Underrated. Many things in Undertale show, vabbè. Neutral Endings and Neutral Run as a whole is no exception. The neutral endings are often overshadowed by both best ending and the worst ending. Today we are talking taking a look at neutral endings, ok? To appreciate them for what they are. Immaginavo ci fosse più neutral ending. I'll be showing my favorite neutral endings and explaining why they are so great to me. Va bene. Here we go. Io proverò a leggere, raga, ma non vi assicuro che riesca a leggere tutto, quindi occhi sullo schermo. Disneynia per fare questo l'abbiamo ottenuto. Oh, passando un po' il volume. Questa non è tipo la pacifist? Eh sì, infatti, most common ending for those in tempi di pacifist. Like a god has been disbanded. It's the one of the few endings in which Undying stuck to. Perché? And she makes the ending shine even more. L'abbiamo visto 2 volte sta roba, però Mo raga con gli skip diventa difficile. Io provo a vedere se eventualmente... No, non sono riportati dei punti skippabili qua, perciò ce lo becchiamo tutto. Shines bright with the life and characterization. Easy 9 to 10. There is Undyne Betrayal Depression ending. If you befriend Undyne and then kill Metaton, she will really hate you in this ending. I don't know how to put this. And wait for everyone's disappearance. She really... Ma perché così? Madonna santa, mi sto incazzando. Non so neanche. Lo leggo una cosa sopra e una cosa sotto. Oh, che palle. E dai. You made us disappear, you killed someone. I couldn't protect her. Revenge won't bring anybody back. Posso mettere la velocità? Sì, però poi si distorpia tutta la musica, diventa un casino. Quindi questo praticamente ending ce l'hai quando salvi Undyne ma uccidi Metaton. E qui tipo le testate depressa ce l'ha con noi a morte. Dio del personaggio, cosa scrive il tipo della chat? Io sì, vado un po' nel pallone. Sans Ruins Ending. Quindi parla della policy di Torek che non funziona. Because a Tiny Little Massacre. Ok, quindi qualcuno abbiamo ammazzato perché se non era appunto le kill ci sono state. Because of you. More than ever, voglio distruggere gli umani. Undyne spearheaded the revolution. She was pretty mad after what happened to Asgore and Alphys. Che è successo ad Alphys? C'era la possibilità di killare Alphys? Non mi pare. Ho visto che domani ci sarà lo State of Play. Infatti devo vedere come cazzo faccio con il fuori classe ora. Perché mi piacerebbe spettarlo, però se il fuori classe finisce per le 11. Non finisce per le 11. Quello che è successo... Che cosa è successo ad Alphys? Scusa. She was... She was pretty mad after what happened to Asgore and Alphys. Mi pare che vada in depressione con la morte di Metaton, non di Undyne. Ma sono vive entrambe. Dice che ho ammazzato qualcuno, però non sto rincoglionendo sta playlist. Undyne is even more vehement about destroying mind than Asgore. Quindi Undyne vuole vendetta. At least Hans had to keep Toriel company. Come facevo una volta. She's a good roomie. The queen talk about how she'd like to see you again. Isn't that nice? Non sto capendo un cazzo, raga, vi giuro. Io ho voglia di skipparla proprio sto pezzo di playlist. Non mi sta facendo capire un cazzo. Mi dice cose, poi non me le dice, poi non mi fa capire chi è morto, chi non è morto, chi abbiamo ucciso, chi non abbiamo ucciso. Ma... Quindi praticamente questo è il finale in cui ammazziamo Papyrus, ma risparmiamo altra gente, poi ammazziamo altri. E lei va con Sans, vanno insieme perché appunto si conoscevano già da prima però lei non sa che io... Vabbè. Angry Sans Ending. The ending in which you kill almost everyone. Besides for Undyne and some random dudes. Quindi abbiamo ucciso tutti tranne Undyne e qualche tizio a caso. Ok. Everyone's wants revenge on you. Maybe she's not killing any at all. Quindi fa riferimento al fatto che abbiamo ucciso noi Toriel e tipo non risponde più perché semplicemente Toriel non è più viva. L'abbiamo uccisa noi. You better watch yourself, kid. Things are looking real bad for you. Ok. The most unique ending. Cercavano Undyne ma non si trova da nessuna parte. Jay Mason just can't... Oh, è andato Metaton al potere. Ha brainwashato tutti con il suo stupido TV show. I miss... I miss Agent. Ok, sono l'agente di Metaton, vabbè. Metaton in top 5. È l'unico finale in cui appare Metaton. Technically is a very bad ending. Simply the same happened in many other endings too. Chi è che ha provato a cercare? Non ho capito. Undyne forse, perché abbiamo ucciso Undyne. Senza voler believing the best of their lives. Porca puttana, sto facendo pazzo, mamma non ce la faccio. Non vedo l'ora di finirlo sto video. Who can skip over the golden endings? Papyrus became the ruler. King Papyrus is one of the most golden and remembered one. Ah. Put that on the underground. Sans working out to help Papyrus so can be explained by him not wanting his body to be too stressed. Ok. In the end, Papyrus is struggling to deal with your aftermath. Finding problems were made, sometimes the job is kind of hard. Since the king went away, lots of people just want to give up. Sometimes even my best encouragement. You gave him what he wanted by taking what he had. I miss Undyne. I won't give up. Papyrus il re. A number of people disappear overnight. The knowing the ending is basically a troll to those who wanted to see Sans as the king. It's also the only ending in which Sans will not be angry with you if you kill his brother. It's technically the second the best ending. This is the ending you get when you kill basically everyone. In some way, I think it's worse than the genocide. Stavo un attimino confuso. It's a bad feeling hanging over everyone. Like we're just going to die here, trapped in the dark. There's no hope for a better future, and the underground is covered with despair and dust. I bet you are wondering why I'm not the ruler. Not cut out for something like that. I like to take it easy, you know? This ending is phenomenal. This is what happens when people like me take it easy. You refused to finish the job, and that made it even worse. Sì. That to mention this ending too. Porca puttana, non finisce mai. Hans is the only one left in that broken world. It's full of regrets. If you came back, you're bound to have a bad time. Go to hell, minchia. Last ending. We got the most memorable one. You're the one killing my friends. Alfie's ending is amazing. L'unico ending in cui lei appare. E adesso guilty knowing. Non sto riuscendo a leggere un cazzo, madonna. When they led the truth instead of being angry. The truth about me, it's strange, you know? They praised her as a hero and made her run everything. She's not suicidal anymore. I miss everyone. I really should have killed you when I had the chance. Ostio. E mo? In 4 minuti che fai? What made the neutral ending so special? A lot of things, really. All your actions are accounted for. Do this, kill him, and there will be consequences. The neutral endings are the consequences. Every neutral ending is different from the other, which makes them sad, emotional, and brilliant in their own ways. They add a lot of characterization and personality to plenty of characters. It's a shame they aren't looked at as much as they should. Then there is this song, una canzone addirittura. Undertale Lost 83, Unending. It's one, if not my favorite Undertale song. Vediamo un po'. It's a sad piano song, which goes perfectly along with the neutral endings it's in. Without an ending, the neutral endings would be less hard. È quella che sto ascoltando, immaginavo. And those endings which don't have an ending are even sadder and painful. I really love the neutral endings with all my heart. Whatever you have done, the not ending will still be great. I guess that's it for this appreciation video. Perché il timer? Like and maybe sub if you... No, non penso. Mi è venuto un mal di testa. Siamo anzi a 20 minuti. Sono così confuso, mamma mia. Sarà una lunga giornata questa. Sarà una lunga giornata. Vabbè, il Neutral Ending ci stava a sapere che comunque erano abbastanza variabili. Come posso dire? Per ogni persona che killavi, che non killavi, sopravvivevi, insomma, variava un po' lì e per lì. Ce ne sono molte altre, a quanto pare questo qua è elencato le sue preferite. Ci stanno, alla fine sono molto simpatiche. Quella di Alphys effettivamente, dove dice io potevo ucciderti quando avevo la possibilità e non l'ho fatto. Cosa puzza. Scopo del timer non lo so. Sto video mi ha confuso a bestia. Base Guy 01, per carità. Si apprezza lo sforzo, però mamma mia, potevi fare degli spezzoni in cui mettevi la tua scritta, poi lasciavi far passare le chat dei personaggi, poi facevi un'altra pausa, no, tutte insieme. Vabbè. Vabbè. How Undertale was made and why its success scared the creator. Ok. Vediamo se devo leggere o se è doppiato. Mi sa che qua... Ah, a posto. Volume up. No, sono stato zitto per un po'.
Sometimes even humans, in every RPG, and the consequences for this are never addressed. What if they were? This is the question that sparked the idea for the indie game UNDERTALE, an RPG made by Toby Fox, who did all the writing, programming, music, and some of the art for the game. The rest of the artwork is done by one of his friends Tammy Chang, and a few other artists that are credited on the Kickstarter campaign for UNDERTALE. Toby deliberately wanted to keep the team as small as possible, as he believes the bigger a development team gets, the more diluted the game becomes.
Domanda, volete i sottotitoli o li posso levare? Ve la cavate con l'inglese? Cioè, lo dico per voi, io preferisco senza. Se avete difficoltà ve le metto a schermo. Ci sono in italiano magari anche? Non credo. In russo se volete ci sono, ma non penso di volerlo. Se lo capisco io lo capiscono tutti. Vabbè, Sam, ci sono un po' più persone un po' più giovani che magari hanno difficoltà. Giapponese stava, non mi pare di averla vista. No, non c'è, mi spiace. Vabbè, leviamoli.
Becomes. One of Undertale's biggest influences goes back to when Toby was only 4 years old, which is when he started playing Earthbound on the Super Nintendo, and this early gaming experience had a lasting impression on him. I was so young that it helped me learn to read, and also transformed my brain forever. 7 years later, Toby discovered the Earthbound fan site Starman.net, and now he finally had a place to talk and connect with other Earthbound fans. A few of his friends from the fan site now run the Fangamer website, which sells Toby's Undertale merchandise. In the year 2000, Toby and his 3 brothers started playing around with the RPG Maker 2000 tool to make role-playing games. He said they barely finished any of them, and none of them were ever released on the internet. When he was in high school, Toby created quite a few Earthbound ROM hacks as well, and the most notable one is the Halloween hack that he released in 2008 on the Starman website. Besides keeping his love for Earthbound alive during high school, Toby also started playing the piano and trumpet, which in turn sparked his love for composing music. Fast forward to his time in college, where Toby started putting together the building blocks for his first real video game project.
Questi sono i suoi appunti. Dici, perché mi Toby Fox mi sembra un fulminato? Ecco.
Started putting together the building blocks for his first real video game project. He initially did it together.
As the broader name Comic Sans. Questi erano tipo sketch di Papyrus. di Sans. Ecco, Name Papyrus. Second boss is a skeleton. I was raised by a newspaper. I take what I want when I want. I'm a man's man. Where's the fedora when you date? Meno male non l'abbiamo visto. How do you like my style? Russ, we need to talk. Hello, my darling, I made spaghetti. Crunches on it. It's a little...
The building blocks for his first real video game project. He initially didn't start with a concrete idea for either the story or gameplay, and the first piece of inspiration actually came from Wikipedia. One day, I randomly read about arrays, and realized I could program a text system using them. So, I decided to make a battle system using that text system, which in turn gave me many ideas for a game. Then, I decided to make a demo of that game, to see if people liked it, and if it was humanly possible to create. This combat system was also further inspired by Shin Megami Tensei, where the player can talk to demon enemies in order to recruit them. It always interested me that you could talk to monsters to avoid conflicts, but the conversations were often kind of repetitive, and if you screwed them up, fighting became your only option. I wanted to create a system that satisfied my urge for talking to monsters. Toby felt that it was important to make every monster feel like an individual. He further said that basically all monsters in RPGs like Final Fantasy are the same, besides the actual designs of the enemies. They attack you, you heal, you attack them, they die. There's no meaning to that. Toby's experimental text-based combat system was made in GameMaker 8, and the developer would use an upgraded version of this engine called GameMaker Studio, and later GameMaker Studio 2, for the rest of Undertale's development. However, Toby also used GameMaker 8 to create a demo for Undertale. As for Undertale's core concept, Toby wanted to make an RPG, but he wanted it to be different from all the games he grew up with. I wanted to make an RPG game where you could befriend all of the bosses, where not killing everything is actually a viable option. If you think about it, most RPGs are endless murder fests. How many monsters do you kill, and to what end? Everything sort of naturally arose from that concept. Now that he had settled on an engine and had a core concept for the game, it was time to start sketching characters and craft a story.
Anime fish.
During this part of the development process, his love for the Earthbound series definitely had an influence on some of the characters and the writing. I can definitely say that I wanted to make something that had as much emotional power, humor, and wonder as the Mother games, while not necessarily taking the same paths to achieve it. Also, the main character is a kid wearing a striped shirt. That's probably too obvious. Although Toby looked to the Mother series as a main source of inspiration, Undertale ended up becoming something very different compared to most RPGs, and that was no accident. Toby wanted to challenge conventional RPG mechanics and tropes, and fully embrace the video game medium. He said he's very tired of traditional JRPGs, and wanted to see one that's not boring to play. One that has interesting characters and utilizes the medium as a storytelling device as much as possible, instead of having the story and gameplay abstractions be completely separate. An example of this is the character Toriel, who serves as a sort of guide for the player during the first moments of the game. Make no mistake though, Toby deliberately depicted Toriel as an overprotective mother to poke fun at the Toriel levels found in many modern games. However, Toby also gave Toriel a more important role, since he feels that mother characters in games have seen a decline. There really aren't enough mother characters in RPG games. In Pokemon, Mother, Mother 2, there's this trope of having mothers be there only to say goodbye.
Il discorso Mother e Mother mi sta confondendo. Ero convinto stesse parlando del gioco, in realtà parlava proprio dei personaggi mamma nei giochi e poi dei giochi di... ok. Ce la posso fare, le 4 ore di sonno possono essere... Ok.
Bye to their 10-year-old kid as they go out into the world. They're basically just symbols rather than characters. Even Mother 3's mother character, Hinawa, doesn't really show up very much in the scheme of things. So here is Toriel, a mom that hopefully acts like a mom. She won't let you explore a dangerous world by yourself, because she genuinely cares about your well-being. As previously mentioned, most of the art was done by Toby and Tammy Chang. While Toby had final say over all the artwork, Tammy is credited as the logo designer, cutscene artist, overworld artist, animator, shop artist, and tile artist.
Ammazza.
Furthermore, she's also responsible for the conception of a couple of the characters: Lux, Vegetoid, Papyrus, Lesser Dog, Greater Dog, Undyne, and Aaron. Both developers have visual representations of themselves in the game, with the annoying dog representing Toby and the monster called Tammy representing Tammy Chang. All the art was done in Microsoft Paint and graphic scale. The retro pixel art made it easier for Toby to contribute his own designs, but that's not the only reason pixel art was used. Even if I had a team of 100 artists, I probably wouldn't want it to look any different. Visual gags usually benefit from funny expressive drawings. One of the creepier characters, Flowey, has a voice line in the game.
That's a wonderful idea!
This voice clip actually comes from a McDonald's commercial that was made in the 60s.
Ma che
Ronald
cazzo
McDonald
dici?
can be heard saying the line to a group of children.
Oh, what a beautiful day for fun. What would you like to do? Party! That's a wonderful idea.
Obviously, Toby adjusts
Ma che stai dicendo? Ma veramente? Ci sono molte idee. Oh mio Dio, quelle del mondo esterno, però... Oh, figa, sono curiosissimo allora.
the clip to make it sound more disturbing. When it came to
se
the
già penso doppio
storytelling
Toby.
and writing, Toby once again drew inspiration from the unsettling world of Earthbound, as well as more silly things like internet culture and funny shows like Mr. Bean. The idea of being trapped in an underground world was partially influenced by the game Brandish. The developer struggled with the parts of writing that aren't text, but once he had established the character's voice and mood, writing scenes became easier. As stated earlier, Toby already made a combat system of sorts before anything else, but it would take up a lot more time to polish and refine his unique take on turn-based battles. While expanding this battle system, Toby took inspiration from the Mario and Luigi RPG games and bullet hell shooters like Toho Project. It might seem strange at first to combine a turn-based combat system with real-time shooter elements, but Toby explained that he wanted to do something different than he was already familiar with. He also said that bullets offer more variety and movement than simple button presses. Even though the combat is inspired by the bullet hell genre, Toby didn't want it to become as difficult as those games, so that more people would be willing to play and enjoy Undertale. He managed to accomplish this by using fewer and larger projectiles, and he would keep iterating on his bullet patterns until Toby thought they were tough but fair. Furthermore, he let some of his friends, who did not have much or any experience with bullet hell shooters, test out the combat, and saw that they were able to complete it without too much effort. All of this combined convinced Toby that the game's difficulty was just right. During development, it was very important to him to make a game that he would personally enjoy playing, and not necessarily create something with mainstream appeal. That's why there's no fetch quests or backtracking present in Undertale, for example, since Toby personally dislikes those tropes in video games. A trope that Toby is a fan of is the silent protagonist trope. The character doesn't say very much, because then you can identify with them better. Most of the game's narration is in the second person.
Allora, qui ci sarebbe da discutere in realtà, perché è un sì e no. Per carità, è bello avere il protagonista silenzioso per immedesimarsi e essere parte appunto dell'esperienza, però spesso è una noia. Vedesi i personaggi dei Persona, per esempio, o di Pokémon, secondo me... non lo so, è un malus. Su Undertale, vabbè, lo fanno per fare in modo che tu ti senta proprio parte dell'esperienza, però sni. Secondo me è più facile immedesimarsi se comunque il personaggio ha un modo di esprimersi, perché poi ti adatti comunque all'opera. Preferisco personalmente un protagonista che parla, però per essere silenzioso, un diante funziona benissimo con quello. Ah sì, con quello che vuoi fare assolutamente, io parlo in generale. In generale comunque avere un personaggio silenzioso ti rende meno memorabile, va, secondo me. Bel personaggio caratterizzato e tutto. Certo, qui comunque la caratterizzazione c'è, tra virgolette, la recuperi diventando una persona buona o un figlio di puttana. Negli altri giochi invece è più o meno assente. Qua diciamo che il protagonista silenzioso funziona, però io in genere preferisco uno con più personalità. Ciao Gatti, ti sei perso un po' di reference carine. Io che bestemmiavo sui finali della Neutral perché erano spiegati male. Perché non parte?
The more details and personality I add to you, then the harder it is to get absorbed into the role.
No, se è
Players in
fatto
Undertale have the
bene
choice to either
riesce,
spare
basta.
or kill the monsters they encounter, and this mechanic was established before Toby wrote any of the story. While the solo developer wanted to keep Undertale fairly easy to complete, he did make a conscious decision to make it harder to befriend enemies and bosses than to slay them in battle. In games, I noticed that the good path was sometimes the easiest one, but if you do things without effort, then it doesn't feel meaningful. Being a musician, Toby didn't have to think twice about composing the soundtrack for Undertale himself. He even went so far as to give all the main characters their own theme song. Most of these theme songs were created specifically for each character, except for the ones for the brothers Sans and Papyrus. Sans' theme song Megalovania was composed by Toby back in 2008 for the aforementioned Halloween Earthbound ROM hack. Papyrus' theme song Bone Trousel was actually composed for another game that Toby had worked on, but that game never saw a release.
Ok.
The entire Undertale
Quindi Megalovania era per una ROM hack, invece Bone Trousel era per un gioco che non ha mai fatto uscire. Riesci a immaginare meglio il caso di soprattutto se tu cosa vuoi essere, un pacifista o un megalomane?
Soundtrack was made in FL Studio. According to Toby, he was able to compose most of the tracks without much iteration, except for the game's main theme, which went through multiple iterations. When working on the soundtrack, Toby said that he tried to be inspired by all the music he listens to, but he was particularly inspired by the music from SNES role-playing games. Additionally, a webcomic called Homestuck, which Toby had produced music for, also influenced Undertale's music. The developer created the music before he would start programming, as it would help him decide how a scene should unfold. The official soundtrack would be released by video game music label Materia Collective on the same day as the game's release. In June 2013, Toby launched a Kickstarter campaign for Undertale in the hopes to receive some funding to finish his vision for the unconventional RPG. The funding goal was set to a very reasonable sum of $5,000, and by the end of the campaign, Toby received more than 10 times the amount he had initially asked for. In addition to promising an RPG where no one has to get hurt, Toby also provided a demo on the Kickstarter page that anyone could download and try. Several of the available Kickstarter tiers provided a way for backers to create their own characters and enemies that would be added to the game. Toby decided to buy 3 of these designs, and they became Glide, Muffet, and So Sorry.
Chi sei tu? Chi cazzo è So Sorry? Ah, vuole dire Toby, fuck, vabbè, sarebbe stato difficile arrivare senza spoiler in tutto il corso.
Some people on the internet had suggested that Undertale was supposed to be a very short indie game, but Toby said otherwise. I was just unsure if it was humanly possible to create it before making the demo. The reason it was bigger than expected is because my expectations of the areas, battles and so on increased a lot after making the demo. The Kickstarter page also provided an estimated release date of summer 2014, but Toby had to eventually delay the game to September 15th, 2015, when it was released for Microsoft Windows and macOS. When people got their hands on Undertale, they became fascinated with its characters and the many secrets it holds, not to mention the meta nature of the game, which added a whole other level to the many discussions people were having on the internet. People desperately wanted to talk about this strange new RPG, and how their experience differentiated from others. Because of this, the game quickly achieved a sort of cult status among gamers. Add a lot of very positive reviews to the mix, and you have a recipe for a successful indie game story. Before the end of 2015, Undertale managed to sell over 500,000 copies on Steam, and not long after, in February 2016, the game had sold over 1 million copies. After the initial release, Toby kept working on the game and released an update in January 2016, which fixed several bugs and helped make the game more playable for colorblind people by changing the appearance of blue attacks to a darker hue. During E3 2017, Sony had the honor of announcing that Undertale would not only be receiving a port on PS4 and PS Vita, but also a Japanese localization, plus a retail version provided by Fangamer.
Quindi la localizzazione giapponese non era presente dal lancio, l'hanno messa dopo. Io cioè pensavo che fosse già fluente. Io so che Toby Fox è fluente in giapponese. Pensavo che avesse deciso di far partire la cosa dal principio, invece è arrivata dopo. Ah.
They sold both a standard and collector's edition and are still available to buy today. During a Nintendo Direct in March 2018, a Nintendo Switch version was announced, although no further details were given at the time.
2018
Prior
io
to
l'ho
its
presi
reveal,
qua.
it was impossible for developers to directly export games made in Game Maker Studio to the Switch. However, shortly after the Nintendo Direct, it was revealed that a deal was struck between Nintendo and software development company Yo-Yo Games that would make it possible to export Game Maker Studio games directly to the Nintendo Switch. Undertale on the Switch was eventually released on September 15, 2018 in Japan and worldwide on September 18, 2018. All the console ports were developed and published by Japanese localizer 8-4. Many critics praised the game for its innovative mechanics and progressive thinking, while also complimenting its unique characters and clever writing. As a result, Undertale appeared on several end-of-the-year lists in 2015, and even came out on top as Game of the Year for PC from news outlets and critics such as IGN, Zero Punctuation, and Jim Sterling. Total Biscuit even gave Undertale the #1 spot in his top 10 games of 2015 video. The game was also nominated for a bunch of awards, and was able to snatch up a few, like the Most Fulfilling Crowdfunded Game Award handed out by the South by Southwest Gaming Awards event in 2016. The success...
Scrivo adesso quello che penso sulle protagoniste iniziose perché sto lavorando. Quello che si dice lui secondo me è vero fine ai giochi di qualche anno fa, quando ancora internet era diffusissimo, visto che in quel periodo di qualsiasi cosa a noi di poco sensato, con il protagonista muto ci poteva creare le storie sul motivo del loro silenzio, vedesi le creepypasta di Rosso su Pokémon, non le conosco. Potrei informarmi. Chiaramente ora con internet diffusissimo sappiamo che il motivo per pigrizia per... Sì, adesso prima era fatta per scelta voluta, adesso rendiamola interessante, facciamo in modo che appunto si medesimi il player, invece adesso è
popularity of Undertale was undeniable at this point, but Toby had mixed feelings about all the attention his game was receiving. Not only did I not expect this level of popularity, but initially I was afraid of it. I didn't want Undertale to become tiring for people, or become spoiled before anyone even got a chance to play it. Early on, this was probably excessive. I even tried to contact certain Let's Players to tell them not to make any content about it. Like a thunderclap to a small dog, all of this attention stressed me out. At times, I wished I had a way to quell the attention. I felt a strange powerlessness and guilt for feeling stressed when the success of the game should be something I'm nothing but ecstatic about. He further said that ultimately he's very thankful that the game became as popular as it did, since it helped him on a personal level and put him in a position to help other people as well. Toby personally attributes Undertale's success to the many risks it took, and how different it is compared to more conventional RPGs. It takes influence from many strange sources. The graphics look bad in places, the gameplay is very simple. Most of all, the game's humor and surprise is derived from the fact that it defies the expected conventions of normal RPGs. That's the most interesting part to me, that even without understanding of the genre's conventions, the game still resonates with people, kids included. That's very cool. Luckily for Undertale fans, all the attention hasn't stopped Toby from continuing his career as a game developer. On October 31st, 2018, the first chapter of Toby's next project called Deltarune was released for Windows and macOS, and was made available for free. It was ported to Nintendo Switch and PS4 as well in 2019, and these versions were developed and published by 8-4. Gamers quickly noticed that Deltarune was an anagram of Undertale. However, according to Toby, Deltarune is not a direct sequel to Undertale, nor does it even take place in the same world. I will say that basically, what you're seeing here is not the world of Undertale. Undertale's world and ending are the same as however you left them. To rephrase that, Deltarune's world is a different one, with different characters that have lived different lives. A whole new story will happen. The first chapter is between 2 to 3 hours long, and serves more as a demo to gauge people's interest and see how Toby can take the project further. Despite its short length,
non lo
the
so, io
first
non so se
chapter
devo
of
guardare o
Deltarune
meno sta
took a few
roba,
years to
perché
create. Toby
faccio
explained
finta
that
di
this is in part
guardo
because
voi
of
piuttosto che
Deltarune's
guardare
more
qua.
complicated graphics and overworld, implementation of
Posso
multiple
vedere
main
troppo.
characters, and the
Facciamo
fact
che
that
leggo la
Toby had
chat
to
per il
create the
momento.
entire town correctly on the first try, so he could set up the rest of the game properly. Furthermore, there were a couple of factors that were outside of his control. After Undertale's release, Toby had difficulty concentrating on
Gioca.
other tasks, and he even started to doubt himself and
Ho
his
capito, ma io che
capabilities as a
volete che
developer.
faccia?
Toby further described it as a burnout. Additionally, the
Finito?
developer even
Speriamo.
admitted that it would be impossible to
finito.
finish the game between him and Tammy Chang, since it's a much larger project than Undertale was. Alternatively, he added that it might be possible to complete Deltarune if he can assemble a team. Toby said that he's going to try his best to accomplish this, but even with an entire team,
No,
he's
non è
still
finito, c'è
uncertain
ancora
when
dopo
Deltarune will be
qualcosa.
released, or if it will even ever.
Vabbè,
If you played
skippiamo a sto
Undertale,
punto.
I don't think I can make anything that makes you feel that way again. However, it's possible I can make something else. It's just something simple, but maybe you'll like it. Ultimately, Toby is just happy that Undertale resonated with gamers and is being enjoyed around the world. He hopes that his game might inspire other aspiring developers. I hope someday a kid who liked Undertale grows up and makes an amazing game. I would be happy to play that.
Ci sta. Diciamo che nonostante fosse un sociopatico, quello che ha fatto ha avuto senso. Undertale Secrets.
What's up and welcome to the end of Undertale. We are all the way back here because I still have a few things left to do in Undertale. And the first thing on my list is going to be a no-hit completion of the special thanks.
Ok.
We have Azrael here who is going to introduce us to this part. And I did practice a bit and I did look at the entire credit scene just to make sure I know all the attacks, or I guess the parts.
Se l'hai studiato.
I
Vabbè,
will see if I can do it.
non voglio
The beginning is
guardarmela
of course
tutta.
not too bad. This attack is very easy. You can basically go to this secret door which we
Laddove è
unlock
possibile
to find
tagliamo.
the first secret, which we will do in this episode. So we basically went from the end of the game to the beginning again. We are back in Snowdin in the snow forest area. Because the secret is all the way back here. We have to make our way across the bridge and then a few screens further past all these snow paths. And then it was at the, like, what was it, second episode? The second episode, we went down here and we found a secret door. A door which we could not enter, right in this cave here. But now, after the no-hit credits, it's open.
Oh.
Thank God. Oh, we have dogs and rope.
Rope.
Looks like this dog does all its own stunts. Are those dog treats? Oh, puzzle pieces, a jigsaw puzzle. Alright. You tried to pet the dog, but it collapsed into a pile of fluff. Seems like it was actually just a dog-shaped husk of dog residue. What? That is
Ew.
actually creepy. It's a small white dog. It's fast asleep. Fight the dog. Fight the dog. I guess we already did the pacifist run, so yes. Can't fight the dog. Seems like the fabric it's sleeping on has too many holes in it. Seems like the dog needs to patch the fabric. Then you can fight the dog, maybe. Upon closer examination, the holes in the fabric seem to be growing. Might take a while. Dogs aren't usually...
Perché, ma scusa, ma sta giocando o sta guardando anche lui un video? Perché non finisce di leggere e skippa? Ma che problema ha la gente che fa ste robe? Io non sto capendo.
What? Can I... It's a small white dog. Okay, is this the same? Fight the dog, no. Let sleeping dogs lie instead of fighting them. That's how the saying goes. What is that, a book? By barking with text-to-speech on, the dog accidentally programmed the whole game, so that's... I guess that's sort of where it's from. I heard, or I read, that this dog is supposed to be Toby Fox. So, This is how Undertale was made, guys. This is all you need. You have to be a dog, text-to-speech, and a computer. Looks like this dog makes a lot of bad posts online.
Ok, era stati Toby Fox in pratica
Text-to-speech is on.
questa.
Seems like the dog barks, and it somehow translates. Most bad posts online are actually this dog. Thinking about this brings me determination, no relief. Is this the same?
Se non lo sai neanche tu che stai leggendo,
okay.
guarda.
That's the secret. Can I do anything else with this dog? Fight the dog. No. That's it. What the hell? It's a rope, a jigsaw puzzle, dog residue, which is still very creepy.
Assurdo come il 90% della roba extra che fai su sto gioco non valga la pena farla. Mamma mia.
And now we have this. Seriously, we have this song all the way. Is this all? Wait, I'm just gonna try to go outside. I want to know if this song will ever stop. No,
Non,
we
si,
have
non
this
si
song.
ferma più.
Oh my god, this is the best ending. Like, this is actually a happy song for a happy ending now. Oh my god, this is brilliant.
Boh,
And
argomentabile,
now we have our
sincero.
first secret boss fight before us. And we
Ah,
are back in the
questo devo
Hotlands, and
scappare. Questo devo skipparlo, no? Ma vediamo dove devo saltare qua. Ok, questo l'abbiamo fatto pure, che era l'altro. Oh, e qui invece?
Okay, 120 gold. That was secret boss fight number 2. Nice. What? Nothing else to talk about. Okay, so we are back with Onion-san. And we need to go a bit further, so goodbye. But we have to go up here. Yes, to the piano.
Ma cos'è
So
quel
the secret
simbolo
here
Exto Quit?
is, again, very clever. I completely missed that. We need to do something with this statue. We need to get an umbrella and then take it to the statue, and then we will atop the... This is the music we have to play on the piano. Does it still...
Ma è così intuitiva come roba.
Yes, play it.
Exto
Circle
Quit.
right to the door. Oh.
Cioè, per loro questo è un
It's a
segreto?
legendary artifact. Is that a Dragon Ball? Residue. Info. Dogs.
Minchia, fai cagare se non
Use
l'hai
the
mai
dog res.
fatto.
Oh, random. We are at the Metaton Resort, and we need to go to this shop here to Caddy and Braddy, and we will buy the mystery
Io l'ho
key
intuito da
for
solo, sei scazzo
600
anche tu,
gold,
Poli.
probably to someone's house. Braddy, we're gonna be rich.
Ah, questa è la
600
chiave,
gold is
l'abbiamo
actually a
fatta.
lot. And with the key, in our
Aspetta, no,
inventory.
c'è qualcosa.
Okay, so we're here, and apparently, what someone told me, this character here is apparently a special character, a rare character. Her
Suzy?
name is Suzy. Feel like be friends. A neighbor's blessing. Apparently this character is rare. It doesn't appear on every playthrough. And here we are. This is Napstep looks
No,
like.
la roba dell'ombrello sulla roccia lo fece anche nella mia primissima run senza Twitch e nulla, Cioè, era intuitivo che ombrello lo pigli, lo porti, lo piazzi e... Dai, era semplice.
But we need to go into this one. It's locked. Oh, I have to, I guess, use the mystery key.
Vabbè, questo in
Use
teoria
the mystery
possiamo
key.
skipparlo,
The Red
no?
House's door was unlocked. When we defeated Metaton, I thought they were friends. They're actually cousins. They do know
Cousins.
each other.
Hmm.
And right here is actually another secret, I guess. If we
Quello che
play
si
a
sta
CD and then
a-
leave
Ah,
while the
ok.
CD is still playing. There we go. Aaron and Washu appear. And their faces are so perfect.
Ok,
What the heck
che
is
is
that
that
music?
music?
It's spooking me out. This is worse than Shiren. Hey, Shiren is awesome. Shiren
Vabbè,
is
l'avevamo
way less
vista
scary.
questa.
If you're scared, why do you keep winking? Aaron and Washua, if you do the secret, which is in the last corridor, the final corridor. But actually, we already talked to Sans one
Questo
time.
l'abbiamo fatto? L'abbiamo fatto
And
questo,
as
no?
far as I know, Sans will now have different dialogue. I'm guessing it will be somewhat of a fake out. First, you think it's going to be exactly could not enter before. Have you seen a message attached? Behind the house. You unlocked the door and entered.
Vuoi vedere che dice magari il riguardo?
What? That makes no sense. That's some teleporting technique right there. Okay, let's go back. There's a photo album inside the drawer. There are photos of Sans with a lot of people you don't recognize. He looks happy. You look in the drawer. Some kind of badge. Blueprints. You can't read the symbols they're written in. Or maybe just the handwriting. Strange machine. One more. Blueprints. Oh, is that the same? Okay, what's that? A strange machine. That's the machine. But it seems to be broken. Is that all we can do here? Strange machine? Those are the blueprints. Okay. I'm just gonna say sort of what I found out, or what I was told, is that Sans is apparently a time traveler. Or at least tries to figure out how humans can time travel, reset, and use determination. And if you're really good and you figure out the secrets, you can learn more about his backstory, which I find so cool. Like, all those secrets. And those aren't all.
Spero che ci sia nel video che mi avete
in my
messo.
opinion, the biggest ones, or the best ones. There's still so much stuff left in Undertale. But I think that's a nice way to wrap this episode up. We found a bunch.
Undertale is a game full of secrets and hidden Easter eggs, but a lot of fans are pretty familiar with most of them by now. Stuff like the hidden fun value, or the secret conversation with Asriel at the end of the game. But today, I'm going to be telling you all about some facts and hidden secrets that you probably don't already know. I've been speedrunning Undertale for over 6 years now, and through my 3,000 hours of game time, I've seen things that very few fans even know exist.
Mamma mia.
Before we get to that though, I just want to mention that the majority of my viewers aren't subscribed to
c'hai.
the channel. Subscribing is free and only takes a moment, and it helps me out a lot, so make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. With that out of the way, let's dive into 10 Undertale secrets that you probably don't know. In the Hotland area, after you finish up the cooking show minigame with Metaton and have fun stacking hot dogs with Sans, there's this long room here with multiple text messages from Alphys and a path going downwards. Funny enough, a small little trick you can do is that by holding the bottom of this pathway, you won't get any text messages at all, as Toby forgot to extend the triggers far enough. But that's not why we're here. In this room to the south, before picking up the Steam Paper item, you'll get a friend request from Napstabluke22 that, when accepted, will automatically decline itself. It's a funny little joke, sure. But did you know that there was originally another friend request that was supposed to follow this up? In fact, it's still in the game and can be viewed using the punch card glitch. If you use the punch card exploit to wrong warp into the room, you're able to use the stained apron item in order to perform the text overflow glitch, allowing you to access this previously unused dialogue.
Metaton.
Metaton has sent you a mortal enemy request. Accept the request? Congratulations, you are now mortal enemies with Metaton. CoolSkeleton95 posted a comment on this change. Congratulations, you two! Wish you a long and horrible rivalry.
This is one of those unused jokes that I honestly really wish made it into the final game. This dialogue is still present even in the most recent versions of Undertale, although you can't access it due to the punch card method of text overflow being
Quindi è un glitch
inadvertently patched
praticamente
out.
questo segreto.
But it actually isn't translated to Japanese at all and will display in English even when the game language is set to Japanese. It definitely looks strange in this font.
Carino.
Pretty much every Undertale fan at this point knows that in the very first encounter with Flowey, you can intentionally dodge his friendliness pellets to aggravate him and cause him to call you out.
No?
But did you know that there's a secret piece of dialogue here I'm willing to bet very few people have ever encountered? Once you get to the line of dialogue where Flowey says to, quote, run into the bullets, you'll notice the dialogue will then immediately update and change to say friendliness pellets instead. But it actually goes further than this. If you press Z, you'll notice that the dialogue here will actually disappear and the entire text box will remain on screen with no text. But if you press Z 10 times here, Flowey will say, stop it, angrily at you. You have to be pretty quick, as once the bullets go past you, the cutscene will proceed as normal. This is definitely one of the strangest Easter eggs in this game, but it's cool to see even the very first cutscene hide a secret that people don't know about. Speaking of doing multiple inputs very quickly, there's a handful of little Easter eggs placed in the game just for that. In this room in ruins, where Toriel leads you through the 2 switch puzzles, it's possible to get to this second, incorrect switch before Toriel gets into position for the cutscene to progress properly. If you do this and interact with it, the game will play a silly sound and announce that you are super fast at being wrong. Something similar and much less well known than this exists in the Snowden Inn.
Ma non avevamo fatto quello noi, You're Super Fast on Being Wrong. Mi sa che ci eravamo riusciti.
It's actually possible for you to talk to the hotel staff lady a second time while in the process of being sent up to your bedroom. If you manage to pull this off quickly, you can read the special text box where she states, "What? No, you can't have a second key." Okay, everyone at this point probably knows about the fun value, right? Just to recap, every time you start a new game or reset, Undertale generates a number from 1 to 100 called the fun value. And if that value is at a certain number or range of numbers in some cases, various things can happen, such as Sans or Alfie's calling you in Snowden, or Clamgirl appearing in Waterfall to spoil the plot to Deltarune. If your fun value is...
Mi scusi? Sì, ok, però dice ti spoils the story of Deltarune. Che sia un tease, non che spoiler effettivamente, perché quello potrebbe essere un problema.
66. When you reach this room in Waterfall, you'll find an extra hallway, and very rarely, you'll even find a door leading to a blank room with one entity inside. Here, you can interact with this entity, known in the code as SPR_Mystery Man, which many in the community believe to be the eerie lore figure Dr. W.D. Gaster. I'm sure everybody knows that part already. But what you probably didn't know is that you can actually enter this room and interact with Gaster again. Normally, when you walk into this extra hallway, your fun value is immediately set to 0. This prevents you from loading up your save file to see the hallway again, or going into the hallway again at all after viewing it once. So fun value 66 is entirely in charge of the hallway appearing. From there, when this room is loaded, there's a 10% chance that the door will spawn. This gives the door a total 1 in 1,000 chance of occurring, 1 in 100 for the hallway, and 1 in 10 for the door. But when exiting Gaster's room, it'll bring you back into the hallway, regardless of your fun value currently being zeroed out. I think you can see where this is going. It's possible to exit Gaster's room only to hit the 1 in 10 chance to spawn the door again. This lets you go right back in and interact with Gaster a second time as if nothing had happened. Here's a clip of this very thing happening to me during a speedrun.
Yo! I got double door, wait a second!
This is a total 1 in 10,000 chance of occurring. That's more than double the odds of finding a shiny Pokemon in the newer games. What this means is that theoretically though, if someone was lucky enough, they could enter and exit the door and interact with Gaster over and over and over again. The odds of this are incredibly low, in fact, so low that, as far as I'm aware, there isn't any footage of the 1 in 100,000 triple door ever happening to anyone at any point. Spooky. Here's one that may surprise a lot of people. In the fight with Mettaton EX, on the 5th turn, you'll be prompted to answer the question, "Why do you love most about Mettaton?" with an essay response. And no, before you comment, that's not a typo in my script. It's literally an error in earlier versions of Undertale. Anyway, the essay. You can put a whole myriad of different responses here to gain various amounts of points. You can actually lose points by entering in various swear words as well as the word Beppis. You can enter the word Toby for quite a number of bonus points. You can also enter various complimentary words such as hot, beautiful, and captivating. Not captivating, that one doesn't reward extra points. But captivating does because of a typo, unlike the earlier one. This has never been fixed. Anyway, a lot of people know that the highest amount of points can be earned by typing the answer legs. Mettaton will even have a special comment for it. But as it turns out, this is actually not true at all. There is a word that will gain slightly more points than legs does by combining various complements together. The made-up word hot, fine, and cute, made up of hot, fine, enticing, and cute, will gain 360 points, the maximum possible. I think it's a word that describes Mettaton pretty perfectly.
Ok, se lo dici tu.
There's a handful of rooms in Undertale that have music dependency issues. What do I mean? Well, let's look at this room, the Spider Bakery. It plays the track Quiet Water. In the genocide route, normally when you kill every monster in Waterfall and run into the But Nobody Came screen, all of the Waterfall music tracks will be replaced with the track mus_too much, or commonly referred to as But Nobody Came by the fans. If this happens and then you travel to the Spider Bakery, you'll notice Too Much will be playing here instead of Quiet Water. But if you manage to kill 18 monsters in Waterfall and leave the area without running into the But Nobody Came screen, when you reach the bakery, it will still be playing Quiet Water instead. This is because when you run into the But Nobody Came screen, the game replaces all instances of the area music with that track, and for Waterfall, that includes Quiet Water, which just so happens to be reused later. This also happens in another spot. If you kill all 16 monsters in Snowdin without running into the But Nobody Came screen, when you enter Snowdin Town, you'll hear this extremely pitched down version of the normal music. This is the only circumstance in which this version of this track can ever play, and a lot of people don't even know Snowdin Town has a slowed down version for this route. There's one other room where this can weirdly happen, and it's completely unrelated to the genocide route, and it can only be observed using the game's debug mode or editing save data. For some reason, if you load a save file in the videotape room in True Lab, this is what plays instead of the normal theme. This room's music actually just loads whatever musical track is playing in Alphys' lab above ground. So if you use debug mode to load a save from the tape room while Alphys is currently set to play inside of the lab, you can actually hear it here too. A very strange oddity in the programming,
Vabbè,
for sure.
questi sono glitchini così.
Okay, that one was pretty complex, so let's move on to something super simple and quick. After going south in Snowdin in the room with the ice puzzle, and going all the way to the left, you'll reach this cliff. If you stand here and wait long enough, in the background you'll actually see what appears to be a tiny person exiting their house and walking around a bit. Who this person is or what they're doing out there is never explained, but I love tiny little Easter eggs like this in games.
Minecraft Steve.
The True Pacifist epilogue gives you a chance to go around and revisit every area of the game and talk with everyone one last time. You can even have a heart-to-heart with Azrael in the first room of the game. But there's a secret character I bet a lot of you didn't know about. During your playthrough, after you give water to Undyne once she passes out of heat stroke, don't go forward quite yet. Instead, dump out all of the water out from the cooler until the text box for the puddle states that a large puddle is forming. Then, you can play through the rest of the game as normal. If you come back to this room in the Pacifist epilogue, you'll find that a tiny little tree has begun to grow in the water puddle. This is such a tiny little detail that most people probably didn't see, due to the water cooler taking a while to fully empty.
Io mi sa che lo
After
feci la
you
prima
watch
volta.
Mettaton perform his opera song and solve the color puzzle maze, you can backtrack a bit to find this lion NPC. He'll talk about how he really loved Mettaton's dress and wonders if he could wear a dress just like it. If you go back to this room in the Pacifist epilogue, you'll find that the lion is wearing Mettaton's same exact dress and is exclaiming huge happiness and joy over how it looks and feels. This is a pretty cute little interaction, but what you might not know is this actually extends over to Deltarune. In the light world, you can head
Devo skippare? Io penso che skipperò.
For the final fact of the video, I'm going to absolutely tear up 8 years of headcanons and fan art to deliver an extremely harsh truth that many of you just might not be ready for. Love 20 is actually much less powerful than Love 19. I know what you're thinking. What? Wait, that can't be right. It shows right here in the game's stat menu that your attack power is 38, stronger than 36 at Love 19. Well, actually, the number that appears here is 10 points lower than what it really is, but that still doesn't change the point that 48 is more than 46, right? Well, for some unknown reason, Love 20 specifically is coded in a way that makes it so that whenever you enter battle, your attack stat is actually set to 30. That's right, 30, the same as Love 11. This normally can't be observed as you can't fight anything after killing Sans, but by using glitches to infinitely encounter certain monsters, you can get to Love 20 in a neutral playthrough and observe that the power level is pathetic. In case you're curious, the 999 blah 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 damage dealt to Sans and Asgore at the end of the Genocide route is just part of a cutscene. You could have the stick equipped and be at Love 1 here, and it would be the exact same. As for why, all we can really do is speculate. It's possible that at some point in development there was intended to be a fight after Sans. Nobody really knows, except for Toby
Ok,
Fox.
quindi praticamente livello 20 è...
And that's it. If you
è
actually
brutto.
manage to know
Anche
all
perché
of
in teoria non potevi
these,
fightare
You're a
Niente,
freak.
nessuno.
Seriously, some of this stuff isn't even known by the prominent data miners. Hell, while trying to change the
Ciao,
Undertale
Frado.
wiki to include the hot find entecute thing, it got reverted 3 times because all of Twitch is to write a good ending for a script for a use.
Lo stesso tizio, altri 10
A while
fatti.
ago, I posted 2 videos showcasing 10 facts about Undertale that the vast majority of people did not know. You might think I've run out of things to talk about at this point, but after a ton of requests, today we'll be looking at 10 more Undertale facts and secrets that you did not already know. A lot of these are things that I myself wasn't even sure on before doing the research for this video, so I hope you walk away learning something new today. Before we begin, I just wanted to mention that we're getting extremely close to 300,000 subscribers and watches since the very beginning, like me. You might remember the initial confusion on what KR stood for in the Sans fight. I remember the fan term
Non l'ho mai
karmic
vista.
retribution being thrown around a lot back in the day.
Non mi pare di averla
Well,
mai
as it
vista.
turns out, it just stands
Oh
for
sì, c'era, non ci ho mai
karma
fatto
in all
caso.
caps. The game itself directly confirms this through flavor text in the fight, but the way that the flavor
Servono i
text works
sottotitoli,
is
un po'
extremely
scomodo i
weird.
sottotitoli adesso.
During the Sans fight, you can get 4
Ah,
different
no,
versions
sono
of flavor text
generati
depending on how much
automaticamente,
karma
mi
you
spiace.
currently have accumulated.
Sono fatti male.
From 0 to 10, you get "You felt your sins crawling on your back," which is the one that everyone knows about. From 10 to 20, you instead get "You felt your sins weighing on your neck," which less people know about. However, at 20 to 30 karma, you'll get the text "Karma coursing through your veins," which is the text that directly confirms what KR stands for. Now you might be wondering, why have I never seen these? I've taken so much damage to Sans. Well, the reason why this text is obscure is because your KR for the flavor text is checked when Sans begins his turn and then is displayed afterwards, not at the end of his turns like you might expect. This happens after the fight animation and after Sans' dialogue for the turn, which provides ample time for the karma to drain before the check is run, especially if you are actually taking time to read what he says. Additionally, the more karma you have, the faster it drains away. Because of this, very few players would ever naturally see the karma coursing through your veins text in normal gameplay, as the easiest way to see it is to immediately spare and waste a turn right after taking a ton of damage. Now, it's been 9 years since Undertale came out, so this information is more widely known among the community. What you probably didn't know is that there's a 4th flavor text, "Doomed to Death of Karma," with an exclamation point there just for good measure. This text has been argued over for a while because many people have claimed it is unused text. In fact, the localization team for Undertale may have thought this too, as it was temporarily removed from the game in version 1.05 before being added back in a later patch. Viewing this text is nearly impossible, and I almost actually gave up while trying to figure it out. But after trying my hardest, I found one attack that can reproduce it consistently. In Phase 2, you need one of Sans' shadow attacks, or the attacks where he uses many mini-attacks at once, to end in this particular Gaster Blaster formation, and then you need to tank it all. After that, you must immediately spare him to progress to the check as fast as possible. This is nearly frame perfect. With that, I was finally able to get the elusive flavor text and prove that it wasn't unused after all.
macello.
Seriously, this took me over 20 minutes to do. I can see why people thought it was unused. Okay, that was quite a complicated one. Let's
Sì,
do a quick and easy one
vabbè.
instead. In the room in Hotland where you can pick up the stained apron, if you walk to the right, you can see this extra platform off in the distance. It seemingly doesn't do anything. However, when you
Non ho visto
enter the
niente.
room, there is a 1 in 20 chance that you can find a mysterious figure standing over on the right platform. This is the same sprite as one of the mercenaries from Core later,
Gesù.
and I have no idea why this was made as obscure as it was. Using debug mode, you can move out of bounds to find that this NPC can't be interacted with at all and doesn't even have a hitbox. Spooky.
Va
You may
bene.
have heard that at the end of the genocide route, Undertale was supposed to delete itself. And not the 10 minutes of wind like in the final game, I mean it would attempt to delete Undertale.exe from your computer. It's been reported across the fanbase by multiple people that this code simply just doesn't work. But this is actually incorrect. It does work. It just targets the wrong file directory. Rather than target the file path in which Undertale.exe is actually installed in, it instead targets the save file directory. You can see this in action yourself by placing a copy of Undertale.exe inside your save file directory during the genocide ending. As you see here, it gets deleted along with the other files, but other things that you may have put in here won't be deleted. So as for why this wasn't fixed, I'm not sure, and we'll probably never get an answer. but it's possible that Toby left it like this not because he couldn't figure it out, but because the plan he ultimately went with worked better. I personally agree with this as well. As neat of a trick as it is, a game that you paid money for deleting itself would cause a lot of problems. Users without internet access being locked out of the game that they bought would be a huge issue, and to be honest, I think the 10-minute wait hammers home the point better than just a trivial reinstallation would anyway.
Ha senso.
In Waterfall, there's a bunch of echo flowers you can talk to. However, a few of them are outside of the playable space, so what do they say? Firstly, this whole big room in general has seemingly unfinished content, with an entire portion of the area inaccessible despite having hitboxes and even a functioning screen transition in the top left. Here's what that flower says.
So, don't you have any wishes
During
to
the
make?
walk through the rain, the flower off to the side simply says error. But this is just a joke from Toby while coding it, as it's not actually an error handler. However, the most interesting flower is one that doesn't exist in the final game. By placing the Echo Flower object into the ballet shoes room, you can access unused dialogue, seemingly from the human that had the ballet shoes, implying that this is where they met their end. This text was probably removed to make the fate of the other human beings more ambiguous, but hey, Undertale Yellow took this little bit and ran with it, so that's nice. This next one can only be observed in the original 1.0 release version of Undertale and seems to be an accidental leftover debug function. In the final group cutscene before the Asriel fight, if you press the spacebar, Undyne and Alphys will attempt to kiss early, and their faces will completely break for the rest of the cutscene. I think this one speaks for itself. Did you know the piano puzzle has 2 solutions? What I originally thought to be a typo was actually a clever way of noting that there are 2 solutions. This sign here says, quote, only the first 8 are fine, but that seems weird, right? The solution is 7 notes long, and the clue that was patched into the game later is also 7 notes long. But as it turns out, Toby foresaw some players having issues differentiating the note in the accompaniment in the music from the melody. On the piano, I'd call it the left-hand part. If you play that note as part of the solution, the door will still open. Pretty neat little secret. Oh, also Maxine, add this shit to Ribbit. The quiz show is still a trick question. Okay, bye. Anyway, while we're in Waterfall, let's talk about a super hidden oversight that I bet you didn't think was possible to see without hacking. In the artifact room, entering the room will place a dog into your inventory. Exiting the room will remove this dog. If you call Toriel, the phone will ring from within the dog too. However, by using the punch card glitch, it's actually possible to have your inventory up on the screen while moving through rooms, which allows you to watch the dog get deleted in real time. This has the exclusive use of allowing you to hover over an item that doesn't exist, by hovering over the dog as it is removed from your inventory. Using or dropping this null item doesn't do anything interesting, but by selecting info, you can read the text. If you're reading this, I messed up somehow. Well, I guess he messed up somehow. See this sign? No shit. However, the sign can actually vanish in the genocide route, but not at all where or when you'd expect it to. This sign will disappear after beating Undyne the Undying and achieving murder level 12. Murder level is just an internal variable that tracks genocide route progress. It's not something you can actually interact with. For some reason, this sign loses its visibility, but again, you'd only be able to see this by backtracking a considerable amount. Also, the sign does not properly lose its collision, and you'll bump into an invisible object. You can see the hitboxes are still here with debug mode. I have no idea how or why this happened, and it wasn't ever fixed or removed or anything, unlike a few other murder level related bugs. Do y'all remember when the text saying that comedian was broken and would appear incorrectly when Snowdrake was already dead, making old fans think this was about Sans instead? Good times.
Non so di cosa tu stia parlando.
It took a while, but the Xbox version of Undertale was finally data mined recently. Toby Fox actually left a secret message inside the game applauding the efforts of breaking the infamously difficult Xbox encryption. Additionally, the Xbox version has a few secrets when you unplug your controller in specific rooms, but the most notable one is the True Lab one, which would list a series of different body parts that were no longer connected. Now we have the full script since it was cut off on the screen before. Pretty cool stuff. For the last regular fact of the day, did you know about the Hush Puppy item? This can be obtained by sliding a hot dog purchased from Sans beneath the rightmost door in the hotel. This item heals a whopping 65 HP and also states that it nullifies dog magic. Well, what does that mean? Well, you probably didn't know that you can instantly end the fight with Endogeny in the True Lab by using it. Just simply eat the Hush Puppy and the fight will end immediately and you're able to spare them. Pretty neat. While making this video, I asked you guys for any extra facts you wanted to see in this video. A handful of you guys actually correctly guessed a couple of things I already planned to cover. A reoccurring one I saw pop up was something you can do after killing Toriel in a neutral route. If you go back and sleep in the bed after doing so, Asgore's text that usually plays in the game over screen will play, and you'll be greeted with a slowed down, distorted version of Fallen Down. This music track was actually in the demo soundtrack list and was called Empty House. After leaving the room, it inconsistently fades out, but if you listen extremely closely, you'll hear that it's actually playing super quietly in the background, waiting for the game to increase the volume. Pretty neat trick there, Toby. And for today's final fact, it's another extra fact that I just had to include after seeing it. In the game's debug mode, the J key normally does nothing, but it does have one use. It was made for testing the zoom in on Sans during his first cutscene. Pressing J during the cutscene will cause this game crash to happen. Oh, but it gets way better. If you press J while the game is already zoomed in on Sans, it causes you to zoom in again and, well... Wait, come back, wait.
Ok. Chissà se è roba che funziona ancora su PC. Che paura. Useless UNDERTALE information.
You can interact with this random wall and waterfall. You can't inspect anything in the first room of the game until you first meet Flowey. Once you meet him, you can go back and inspect the flowers. If you press X or Shift 5 times on the title screen, you'll get an activity level. Activity level A appears if you have completed the neutral ending. Activity level B appears if you have completed the pacifist route, and activity level C appears if you have fought Sans twice or have killed him. If you don't have any data, no
If I fought Sans twice. Ok, quindi...
information will appear instead. And additionally, if you type in ball on the title screen, you'll get a unique sound that only plays here. Undertale has a total of 93 different endings that you can achieve. There exist 2 different dog error screens in the game and only appear if an error has occurred, such as loading a corrupted save. Deltarune was teased in the Nintendo Switch.
Basta Deltarune, non voglio vedere Deltarune.
Unplug the controller on the Xbox version of Undertale, you get some funny messages. These messages actually differ from room to room. Additionally, the Xbox version of Undertale is the only version of Undertale that is yet to be data mined due to it being on hardware that is extremely hard to do so on. The cursed 3D Toriel model that Toby uses a lot in Undertale marketing is actually canon, according to him on Twitter. There is unused code in the game designed for monsters to drop items. It is unknown as to why this ended up getting unused. Toriel has red eyes in her battle sprite. This is actually a mistake left over from Toby Fox from the demo version of Undertale. Additionally, Toriel isn't meant to kill you either and was also something left over from the demo. If you actually sit still and wait for Toriel to come back to you in the ruins, she'll actually call you and say that a dog is trying to steal her phone, stating that it'll take longer than she would have thought, implying that you should progress forward. Originally in Genocide, the game was going to delete
Quindi era quello che succedeva se aspettavo che lei chiamasse per venirci a prendere. Alla fine avremmo aspettato inutilmente. Ciao Tina, come... Spagnolo non mi ha vinto, quindi immagino che sia andata bene.
itself. However, Toby couldn't get it to work properly and instead went for what the game does today. We all know that this is what Kara looks like, but there's an unused version of Kara in the game's files that looks like this. YouTuber MattPat from Game Theory gave the Pope a copy of Undertale. Years later, Megalovania was played for him during a performance, and then proceeded to go viral on the internet. If you died to a Mega Flowey on the original PlayStation 4 version of the game, originally the game would crash like the PC version. However, it was changed in an update to simply reboot the game automatically because it scared console players. This version of the game, where it simply reboots, is now used for all console ports. Speaking of console versions of Undertale, every console version of Undertale has something unique to them underneath Papyrus's sink, and they are actually connected and tell somewhat of a story. In the PlayStation 4 version, there's a dog shrine, which you can donate to with
Era il dog shrine che mi dicevate che non sarebbe dovuto apparire da me.
gold. The more gold you pay, the more decorated the room becomes. On the Nintendo Switch version of the game, the dog shrine is completely wrecked, and after you return to the room when you beat Mettaton, there's a unique battle with Mad Mew Mew, which is a battle that contains a special soul to demonstrate the power of the Nintendo Switch's Joy-Con controllers. Mad Mew Mew is actually Mad Dummy's ghost, as after you fight with Mad Dummy, they go on to possess the Mad Mew Mew doll. Finally, in the Xbox version of Undertale, the dog comes back, cleans up the room, and then allows you to gamble, which, funnily enough, raised the rating of Undertale to T in the ESRB, making the Xbox version of Undertale the only version of Undertale to have a T rating. After defeating Mettaton X in the Xbox version of the game, Mad Mew Mew will end up taking the casino job. Speaking of Mad Mew Mew, the Nintendo Switch version of Undertale is the only version of Undertale that contains the ghost fight leitmotif in the 4 main areas of the game: Nabsab Look in the Ruins, Mad Mew Mew in Snowdin, Mad Dummy in Waterfall, and Muffet in Hotland. And if you're wondering where Mad Mew Mew is now, according to the Undertale alarm clock dialogue, they're now a virtual streamer. Speaking of the alarm clock,
È diventata una VTuber.
originally there was going to be an Undertale alarm clock app that would deliver dialogue from different characters of the game. However, development of the alarm clock app has stopped due to a variety of different situations, including the development of Deltarune. So instead, Toby Fox posted parts of the dialogue on the Undertale website. Funnily enough, there's dialogue from Undyne stating that Sans did a finger-pointy arm-crossy dance, implying that Sans has canonically done the default dance from Fortnite. Speaking of weird things, Sans is done, Sans won the Ultimate Tumblr Sexy Man after beating several characters, and weirdly enough, Toby Fox wrote a fan fiction about the event? A very old live stream of an old build of Undertale was played on Fangamer's Twitch and is still viewable today. There's even a stat included called EN, which is unused for the final game. In all media regarding Sans, he is always depicted as wearing pink shoes, such as in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. However, nowhere in either Undertale or Deltarune does he actually wear pink shoes. Additionally, in Smash Ultimate's unused textures, there exists a texture for Sans' blue eye in the game. And if you're wondering how Sans actually got into Smash, it was because he beat the creator of Smash, Masahiro Sakurai, in a match, allowing him to put Sans in the game. Speaking of Megalovania had originated from an Earthbound ROM hack created by Toby. So the song getting into Smash was a pretty big deal because of said origins due to Nintendo's history of disapproving of people modifying their games. Smash's remix
capite che casino, capite che Madonna.
Version of Megalovania contains light motifs from Asgore, Toriel's, and Papyrus's theme, meaning that Toby was able to sneak in a small chunk of the Undertale soundtrack in this one song. Have a listen. Toby took a lot of stuff from SpongeBob to make this game, as in Flowey's theme you can hear the SpongeBob Fun song.
F is for friends who do stuff together, U is for you and me.
Considering Flowey's theme appears in numerous locations in the game, you can hear the Fun song in a lot of parts of the soundtrack, including Hopes and Dreams, which is pretty hilarious, and once you hear it, you can never unhear it. Additionally, Sans' voice is literally just Patrick.
No, I would never use anything from SpongeBob.
At the end of Undertale True Pacifist, if you go all the way back to the very first room, you can meet Asriel there.
È un sociopatico, dai, sì, non si può negare. Sans e Patrick, ma che cazzo... Oh mio Dio.
Someone has to watch over these flowers. This also happens if you go all the way back to the first room after beating Toriel for the first time, where she'll also appear there and say, someone has to watch over these flowers. If you actually buy the Spider Donut or Spider Cider in Hotland for 9,999 G, Muffet will actually detect it, and a different cutscene will play where Muffet doesn't even initiate her battle. A task also revealed that if you buy 500 Spider Ciders in the ruins, Muffet will act as if you bought the 9999G Spider Donut or Spider Cider in Hotland. Flowey's voice in Undertale Genocide is actually taken from an old McDonald's commercial.
That's a wonderful idea.
The jukebox in Undertale is broken, and the one in Deltarune is also broken. There's even
non fammi vedere, Madonna Santa, non voglio vedere Deltarune.
As little buddies. However, Papyrus is labeled as an action figure, and Sans is listed as an in-action figure.
C'è scritto Undertale Information, non Deltarune, porca
Some of
Madonna.
the pixels on the conveniently shaped lamp are different colors. You'll never unsee this, you're welcome. Minecraft Story Mode includes a lot of Undertale quotes, which is weird but also pretty cool. If you use the sink multiple times in the True Lab in Undertale after beating Memory Head, there will be text that says you really like to wash your hands. The ground in front of the lab is a different color orange than the rest of the ground. I bet you are now questioning your entire existence. If you check Mettaton 3 times during his battle, the narrator will get extremely annoyed with you every time you check him. The screenshots on the Steam version of Undertale are ridiculously outdated for some reason. I guess Toby just never bothered to update them. We all know that Undertale is an anagram for Deltarune, but it's also an anagram for Nut Dealer. Finally, the third game. Some item names are abbreviated in battle, such as the Butterscotch Pie, which is abbreviated to the Butts Pie. However, there are times in battle when a serious mode is activated, so item name abbreviations change, such as when you fight Sans, the abbreviation for Butterscotch Pie is abbreviated to just Pie. If you name yourself MTT in Undertale, Mettaton says, "Oh, are you promoting my brand?" And the game actually allows you to play with this name. It is impossible for Asgore to age in Undertale due to him being a boss monster. This is because boss monsters do not age until their child matches their own age. Since Asgore's son is dead, Asgore is likely to never grow older than he is now. If you name the fallen human Papyru, you'll get a text from Papyrus stating that I'll allow it.
Sì, vabbè,
this is
questo
due to the character limit during the naming process. In Waterfall, in the following battle with her, her HP will be lowered. Toby actually stated, allow yourself Alfie. If Undyne jumps after Monster Kid after he trips and falls off the bridge in Waterfall, in the following battle with her HP will be lowered. Toby actually stated that he wanted her armor to be cracked as well for a more visual effect, but he forgot to add it. That's cool, but have you ever wondered what would happen if Delta...
That's our developer.
How's it going, guys? My name is Graham, and welcome to Two Left Thumbs. I ended last year by doing a deep dive on secret
41 minuti
Easter eggs
questi, mo
and
vediamo
references
se
in
servono
Deltarune,
tutti.
so it only makes sense that I would end
Siamo a
this
metà
year
dell'opera,
by
spero.
starting a similar series on Undertale. I'm kind of doing things out of order, but that game really opened up a much deeper appreciation of the series for me, and so I wanted to go back and revisit this game very thoroughly. We have the added benefit of having the hindsight of people playing this game for years at this point. So I'm hoping I can assemble bits and pieces that people have been collecting for years at this point and synthesize it into a nice one-stop shop for all these cool little things within this game. As you do the different runs, neutral, pacifist, genocide, true genocide, there are so many branches and deviations and changes within this game.
L'unica deviazione è quella mentale dello sviluppatore.
So it's a nice, simple starting point. I just want to focus on the ruins because not a lot changes within them, and we can somewhat isolatedly cover all of that all at once and kind of just be done with it. I should say right at the top of this is going to be so insanely spoilery for all of Undertale and probably to some extent Deltarune, so just be mindful of that. As I'm
Aspetta. Spoiler di Deltarune, perché Deltarune stesso, quando feci la mia prima ora di gioco, mi disse che se dai per scontato che giochi a Deltarune se hai giocato Undertale. Quindi potrebbe essere spoilish come personaggi, come fatti passati, fatti alternativi. Io lo interpreto così. Spero che non dovesse essere, che non sia effettivamente roba di Deltarune, perché sennò do di matto.
There are a handful of names that are straight up forbidden. You're not allowed to do it.
No, questi abbiamo fatti.
The first one is Alfie's. When we try to accept it, to that.
As in your futile existence.
Ah, ce ne sono altri però, ma
One of
cazzo.
these three things, but if you were to name the character Drac, Gigi, or Gugu, then much later in the game, when you get the stake in the shape of Mettaton's face. Normally this shows up in your inventory as face stake, but if you made your name one of these three things, it will instead be F stake. Gigi DG is an artist that provided some additional artwork in Undertale as well as testing. Way back when they made a Persona 4 fan comic, and F-Stake is a hyper-specific reference to that.
As in, your futile existence has no meaning. GA, do you know any other words that start with F?
For steak?
Excellent!
As a callback to when Brendan and I played through Undertale together on the channel, I'm going to name the character Klaus and move on. At the beginning of the game, we're introduced to Flowey. I would say to just pay a slight bit of attention to the happy little ditty that plays in the background during this opening scene into the bullets. Now calling him for friendliness pellets, he erases it and corrects himself. Now he's getting pretty angry.
Ma
You know
non
what's
capisco
going on
quali
here,
sono
don't
quelli che
you?
dobbiamo
You
vedere
just
o
wanted
meno.
to see me suffer. Coming at us full force, die. Jokes can be useful for breaking the ice. Listen to this one. What did the skeleton tie
No,
up
se
his
li abbiamo
roof
già
with?
fatti, che sto
Shin
sono dura 40
goals.
minuti sta roba.
Well, I thought it was amusing.
È un
During the
casino.
fight, you talk to the dummy. It doesn't seem much for conversation. Toriel seems happy with you, giving us a big old thumbs up in the corner there, but it doesn't really matter for the fight itself. Ah, very good. You are very good. You can still talk to the dummy even without doing that first, and the reaction is still the same. You still win. Toriel's still happy. Doesn't really change anything. Your next option is to simply spare the dummy over and over and over again. Go ahead and spam that a few times. Dummy tires of your aimless shenanigans. You won.
Va
If we
bene.
choose to fight and attack, but never actually attack and simply receive misses, after, I think, the 8th miss, the dummy similarly is tired of your shenanigans and wanders away. And the most simple, straightforward option is to simply attack
No,
it
non
and finish it off. It
vogliamo.
has, like, next to no health, you're gonna kill it very easily.
Ah,
Toriel's
niente.
upset. She wanted us to talk to it. This is something very particular that people noticed a long time ago, and I still am not confident anyone knows what to make of it. Toriel's battle sprite is like 99.5% black and white, except she has red-colored eyes. She's one of the only battle sprites that has any color in her character whatsoever.
Va
Just
bene.
thought that was worth sharing. I'm sure lots of people found this on their own playthrough, but at the very end of the long hallway with this pillar, you can check behind it and Toriel's just kind of camping out back there. I assume people will ask if you interact with this like dozens, hundreds of times. Doesn't matter, it's gonna be the same response every
Che
time.
palle.
After this little sequence, Toriel tells you that she has some important business, says that things are very dangerous, and asks you to wait here by yourself. This is also when you first receive the cell phone. There are options here where you can actually call Toriel. There's a bunch of different dialogue branches, and she has particular responses to all of them. This is Toriel, you only wanted to say hello. Aw, that's so nice, or whatever, hello. Most of the interactions are along the same line as that. There are videos specifically dedicated to it, so I'm gonna leave that alone for now. Other people have found specific things, like later in the game, you can call Papyrus in like every individual room of the game, and they'll have different dialogue within every
Madonna
individual
mia.
room of the game. As fun as I think that would be to cover, other people have done it very thoroughly, so I'm probably gonna leave out things like that. After about 4 minutes, you get your first phone call. Hello, this is Toriel. My errands are taking longer than I thought they would. You must wait 5 more minutes. Thank you for being patient. Hello? This is Toriel. I found what I was looking for, but before I could take it, a small white puppy snatched it away. How odd. Do dogs even like flour? That is an unrelated question, of course. It will take a little longer. Please understand. And it is very serious about that. You have to wait in real time for 5 more minutes. I've heard it said that waiting here forever for Goat Mom is like the true pacifist route. You just never leave this room. No one gets hurt. We get the next call, just a pause. You hear heavy panting on the other end of the phone. Bark, 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 bark. You hear a distant voice. Stop, please. Come back here with my cell phone. We now know that the dog has stolen the phone. If you try to call the dog, somewhere, signals deflected by a dog.
Wow.
It doesn't matter which of the dialogue options you choose, you get the same thing each time. Snore, snore. It sounds like a small white dog is sleeping on the cell phone. You hear a distant voice. Hello, little puppy. Where are you? I'll give you a nice pat on the head. The snoring stops. If you return my cell phone, the snoring resumes.
Madonna.
After calling the dog again, it's the same thing as before. Our next call coming in. Pause. Snore.
5
snore.
minuti.
Achoo! It sounds like a small white dog sneezing in its sleep. You hear a distant voice. Here, puppy. Oh dear, I should not keep my guests waiting any longer. Oh no, how long has it been since I've talked to them? Perhaps they've been calling the phone and... Here, puppy. The next call.
Madonna.
Snore, snore. Yawn. Blink, blink. Yawn. Snore, snore. You hear a tired voice. Doggy. Here, doggy. Oh dear. I do wonder how they are. And one final call comes in. Snore, snore, click. Now normally after leaving the room we get, hello, this is Toriel. You've not left the room, have you? There are a few puzzles ahead that I have yet to explain. It would be dangerous to try to solve them yourself. Be good, alright? If after waiting that full, 30 minutes of the annoying dog taking the phone and all the shenanigans, you finally walk out of the room, we get our call from Toriel, now changed. Hello? Hello? This is Toriel. My apologies. A strange dog kidnapped my phone. So if you called, I could not have helped you. However, I have recovered it. And you're still in that room, are you not? What a good child you are. There are a few puzzles ahead that I have yet to explain. It would be dangerous to try and solve them yourself. Be good, alright? If you walk back to the far left of this room, we get a few frames of Flowey disappearing back into the ground.
Oh.
This is our first piece of evidence that Flowey kind of stalks the player throughout the game. There seem to be 11 different known examples of this. This is one of the few times I'm going to venture out beyond the runes for this video. This is very thoroughly covered by Sirosaki. In their video description, they very graciously say that others are allowed to use what they found in this video, and they simply ask that credit be given. So here I'm saying that the legwork for this was put in by Sirosaki. They did an incredible job summarizing all this. Backtracking in the ruins is the first one. The second can be found when going backwards in the Frogget room. Again, after meeting Sans and Papyrus. After solving Papyrus's second X and O puzzle. After talking to Sans and Papyrus on the long bridge that leads to Snowdin. In the bottom left of this flower puzzle
Dov'è che l'abbiamo
room,
beccato? Non mi ricordo.
in the big Echo Flower room, going back to the kitchen after Metaton's cooking show,
Forse qua lo beccammo, mi
after
pare.
defusing the bombs, after this grayscale multicolor tile puzzle, and finally after the blue room.
Ma non ho
with
capito,
the
è una cosa
laser.
RNG o succede?
Allow me to say thank you one more time to Sirosaki for both doing the legwork and finding all of that, as well as putting together the footage. I'm going to toss a link to that video in the description, because that is a lot of work
Cioè
to
succede
do,
sempre?
and I'm going to admit that I didn't have the patience to do it myself, so that is entirely on them. They did a great job. More like follow-we, am I right?
Bella battuta.
Yeah, I nailed that. In this top room with the bowl full of candy, it says, take one. Take a piece of candy?
Questo inizio l'abbiamo visto.
Taking a second piece, you took pacifist or genocide. Don't worry about that. 3 out of 4 gray rocks recommend you push them, kind of referencing the fact that we have the one snarky rock that doesn't like being pushed. Interestingly, during this particular puzzle, where you would push rocks 2 and 3, with the 4th one giving you trouble, you can actually disregard the other 2 rocks and simply push this one to solve the puzzle. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. When you start committing down the path of cheering up Napstablook, they eventually create their hat and become Dapper Blook. If you then change tactics and threaten, you give Napstablook a cruel look. I knew it. And then they start crying again. Or you can continue to cheer, and instead of having them cry harder than ever, then Napstablook gets out of the way. There are so many little micro interactions like that across this game, different ways that you can play around with the various monsters and characters. I don't know how many of them would be considered, quote, secrets or Easter eggs. People are going to have to let me know whether or not covering that sort of thing feels excessive. I think they're interesting, but it's also the sort of thing people might incidentally encounter on their own playthroughs anyways, so you'll have to let me know whether or not that's worth including in follow-up videos. I hear you can use F4 for full screen, but what does F4 stand for? 4 frogs? I have only seen a maximum of 3 frogs in this room.
Questo l'abbiamo fatto, mi sa.
If your full name is Luke Skywalker, so it's when you say it together, it's supposed to kind of sound like Luke Skywalker. Talking to the second frog, I've heard you are quite merciful for a human. Surely you know by now a monster worthy.
Questo l'abbiamo fatto, mi
Can you
sa.
go to space? What are you doing with this? They'll no longer have yellow. It'll simply be white. How are you doing without yellow names? It's great. Bring them back. Huh? It's rather inconvenient that you changed your mind like
Come
this,
no?
since I
Ma
told
tocca di
everyone
sì.
not to use yellow names. Everyone threw theirs out. Well, last year it was fashionable to have pink names. I think everyone still has those in their closet somewhere. I'll ask everyone to look, but this is the last time. At which point, Spare is now this kind of Pepto-Bismol pink. And it'll be like that the rest of the game. So hopefully you like pink. The best part is much later in the game. When you're in the garbage dump, there's a pile of yellow names in this trash pile. I love these sort of callback interactions in this game. It's why I truly love it. In the cupboard, there are cookie cutters for gingerbread monsters, because they wouldn't have gingerbread men. There is this little plant out in the hallway. You've seen this type of plant before, but you do not know its name. At the far end of this hallway, we have the room under renovations. It's important later in the game, don't worry about it for now. Inside Toriel's room at her bookshelf, it's an encyclopedia of subterranean plants. You open to the middle. Typha, a group of wetland flowering plants with brown
Però per la
oblong
gioia di
seed
podi lo
pods,
faremo
which
vedere.
many of you probably know as cattails, but known more commonly as water sausages. If we then go back into the hall and interact with either one of these plants, oh, it is a water sausage. Inside Toriel's diary, we have a circled passage. You read the passage. Why did the skeleton want a friend? Because she was feeling bonely. The rest of the page is filled with jokes of a similar caliber. Based on much later in the game where we learn that Sans and Toriel have this sort of relationship, I think there's a legitimate chance that these are jokes that Sans told Toriel and she then wrote down. It would make sense that one of the first jokes he told was a skeleton joke. I think we could even take that one step further with the joke she suggests telling the dummy also being a skeleton joke. We have our happy home music playing, and when you turn out the light, we get a slightly more nighttime themed song to go along with it. Very interesting and kind of messed up that we have this picture of a flower on the wall, but because of the color palette, we can't really quite tell how flowy-esque it truly is. When we climb on downstairs, we will get interrupted by Toriel. I think you should play upstairs instead. If you continue to keep going down, it's dangerous to play here. It is drafty here. You will catch a cold. It is dusty here. You will catch a cold. There is nothing to see here. Do you want to read a book? I do not like the game you are playing. Starting to get stern, Toriel. Why not go for a walk in the yard? Really now. Eventually she kind of gives up with the excuses and the suggestions, and we just get the ellipses. And from that point on, repeating the cycle just brings up the same interaction. If you call Toriel right in front of her, hey, you silly child, if you want to talk to me, I'm right here. Toriel in her chariot is reading her book 72 Uses for Snails. Through various dialogue interactions before she gets up and leave, she might share a few of those facts. No, there are not 72 of them. How about an exciting snail fact? Did you know that snails sometimes flip their digestive systems as they mature? Here is an exciting snail fact. Did you know that snails talk really slowly? Just kidding, snails don't talk. Did you know that snails have a chainsaw-like tongue called a radula? Did you know that snails make terrible shoelaces? So there's really only the 4 different results of that. There are a lot of deviations that take place with this particular fight, which starts to be very true for the rest of the game. There is an insane amount of alternate dialogues and pathways programmed into things. Covering the ruins by themselves was kind of a nice warm-up for me, since the deviations are pretty minor and easy enough to tackle. It gets complicated very quickly. Honestly, it's very daunting for me to take on, so I kind of started small. If you try to talk to Toriel over and over during that fight, you eventually get, ironically, talking does not seem to be the solution to this situation, considering she's the one who so heavily pushed for that. Losing the fight is actually a little bit of a challenge, since Toriel will specifically start avoiding you and trying not to defeat you. If you manage to squeeze it in and take the full brunt of the damage in time, we get this quick frame of a shocked Toriel as she regrets what she has done. You pretty much have to die within the first 2 attacks before she starts fully pulling her punches. Then you just kind of get the same regular game over screen. After sparing Toriel when she walks off, 1, she stops answering your calls, which is quite sad. You can backtrack upstairs and go to bed. Please, wake up. You are the future of humans and monsters. But you can carry on and backtrack through the entirety of the ruins. One funny thing ending back at the spike puzzle is that we realize even without Toriel leading us, you literally can't fail it. It won't let you walk anywhere other than where the spikes drop. Back at the very beginning of the game, in the room with the flower bed that we drop into, we find Toriel waiting. Do not worry about me. Someone has to take care of these flowers. Golden flowers. They must have broken your fall. This scene is a little bit nice because we get to see that Toriel has some remaining purpose, but it's also devastating because the game does imply that the first fallen human is buried underneath this flower bed. It's something that Toriel's never fully let go of.
Huh? La dicevano questa cosa o lo sto sentendo adesso per la primissima volta? Che in realtà il letto di fiori è una tomba dove è stato sterrato uno dei primi. Forse era sepolto.
And that she remains tending to this day. Hey, while we're at it being super depressing and a big downer about things, Toriel specifically says she's going to lead
ci sono i game theory, i video di game theory dopo, raga, che
through
banger.
the catacombs, which quite literally are underground cemeteries. Later on in Toriel's repeated dialogue, she also warns about things being very dusty. What happens to monsters when they die? They turn into dust. These ruins that we're walking through during this tutorial are quite literally a cemetery for dead monsters, likely for those who died during the war. Toriel's just too good for us. And if you happen to kill a few of the monsters along the way before sparing Toriel and going down the long hallway and confronting Flowey again, clever. Very clever. You think you're really smart, don't you? In this world, it's kill or be killed. So you were able to play by your own rules. You spared the life of a single person. Frogget, Whimsum, Vegetoid, Lukes, Migsop, Moldsmall. Think about those names. Do you think any of those monsters have families? Do you think any of them have friends? Each one could have been someone else's Toriel. Selfish brat. Somebody is dead because of you.
Ooh.
If you commit to a full pacifist run when you see Flowey, clever. Very clever. You think you're really smart, don't you? In this world, it's kill or be killed. So you were able to play by your own rules. You spared the life of a single person. I bet you feel really great. You didn't kill anybody this time. But what will you do if you meet a relentless killer? You'll die and you'll die and you'll die. Until you tire of trying. What will you do then? Will you kill out of frustration? Or will you give up entirely on this world? And let me inherit the power to control it. I am the prince of this world's future. Don't worry, my little monarch. My plan isn't regicide. This is so much more interesting. At which point we get a morphing, terrifying Flowey. More so than usual, even. If you actually spare Toriel first, reload, come back and kill her. After living our horrible genocide life, we talk to Flowey. Wow, you're utterly repulsive. You spared her life, then you decided that that just wasn't interesting enough for you? So you murdered her just to see what would happen? You killed her out of boredom? You naive idiot. Do you think you're the only one with that power?
Minchia.
The power to reshape the world purely by your own determination? The ability to play God? The ability to save? I thought I was the only one with that power, but I cannot save anymore. Apparently your desires for this world override mine. Well, well. Enjoy that power while you can. I'll be watching.
Madonna santa.
Flowey, after killing various monsters, including Toriel. I hope you like your choice. After all, it's not as if you can go back and change fate. In this world, it's kill or be killed. That old hag thought she could break the rules. She tried so hard to save you humans, but when it came down to it, she couldn't even save herself. What an idiot.
Questo mi sa la prima cosa che ottenni
Mom, we decide to come
nel mio
upstairs
primissima
and
run.
sleep in our bed again. Your name, please. Wake up. You are the future of humans and monsters. At which point we get a slightly slower version of the song Fallen Down. You can stop it and start it by turning the light off and on again. If you want to be truly sinister, there is a betrayal death here, where you lead Toriel along all the way before the
Questo l'abbiamo
final
visto
spare
prima.
opportunity, and then attack you at my most vulnerable moment. To think I was worried you wouldn't fit in out there. You really are no different than them. First, if you kill Toriel and then reload in order to save her, we get this slight dialogue variance right before the fight. Prove yourself. Prove to me that you're strong enough to survive. Wait.
Oh.
Why are you looking at me like that? Like you've seen a ghost. Do you know something that I do not? No, that is impossible. After this weird ghost mention, if you choose to talk to Toriel, you thought about telling Toriel that you saw her die. But that's creepy. Can you show mercy without fighting or running away? Or if instead you killed Toriel the first time and reset in order to go back and save her? Clever. Very clever. You think you're really smart, don't you? In this world, it's kill or be killed. So you were able to play by your own rules. You spared the life of a single person. But don't act so cocky. I know what you did. You murdered her. And then you went back because you regretted it. You naive idiot. Do you think you're the only one with that power? Then he gives us the same speech about determination and playing God and using saves.
Mamma mia.
Well, enjoy the power while you can. I'll be watching.
Grasse risate.
If you fulfill the requirements of a true genocide route, you're not really human, are you? No, you're empty inside, just like me. In fact, your player name, right? We're still inseparable after all these years. Listen, I have a plan to become all-powerful, even more powerful than you and your stolen soul. Let's destroy everything in this wretched world. Everyone, everything in these
Questo abbiamo avuto per la
worthless memories.
genocide.
Let's turn them all to dust.
That's a wonderful idea.
Then we get to hear Flowey, actually speak for the first time, and it honestly sounds a little bit like Jevil. I wouldn't connect those two. That's probably just generated using the same piece of software or whatever, but
Chi glielo dice? Chi glielo dice?
kind of neat. Pretty creepy. If you really go for it, kill Toriel, reload, and kill Toriel again? You just can't get enough, can you? How many more times will you kill her?
Ah, ma queste sono tutte le
Disgusting
ruins. Ok,
animal.
ok.
You didn't even try to
Pensavo
spare
ci fosse
her.
altro pure.
Every subsequent time after that, like as many times as you want, you sicko, Flowey will say, wow, you really can't get enough. You kind of remind me of myself. Indicating that maybe when Flowey had this power, this is the sort of stuff he would do. So yeah, we're as bad as him now. Now's a good chance for us to circle all the way back around when you're first naming the fallen human, making it Frisk. You get the warning about activating hard mode. Yes, that's what I want. When activating hard mode, we're dropped into the ruins, same as usual, but the enemies we encounter in the game are replaced by more difficult late game enemies. Every time you're hit, it'll deal 5 damage, meaning you'll die in only 4 hits. So yeah, it makes things pretty tricky. The correct switches are no longer labeled for us. There's not a bunch of arrows and text on the wall saying, please grab this switch. And when you encounter these more difficult enemies, that doesn't seem correct. We have Final Frogget and Astigmatism, the endgame versions of Frogget and Luke's. Standard encounters like Napstablook don't change in hard mode. Yes, you take 5 damage, but it's not like an alternate harder version of the character. In the normal game, when first reaching the home, Toriel has baked you a cinnamon butterscotch pie. Want you to have a nice time, so I will hold off on snail pie for tonight. Once you climb into bed and wake up, you'll have this slice of butterscotch cinnamon pie waiting for you. Jumping way ahead, if you save this piece of pie throughout the majority of the game and eat it in front of Asgore during that battle, it'll actually weaken his attacks and defense, making that battle slightly easier. It's a pretty down and dirty trick like that to use his ex-wife's cooking against him. When you wake up in the morning in hard mode, Toriel accidentally makes you a slice of snail pie. So I guess all that conversation about cinnamon and butterscotch didn't matter. Info about the snail pie, it heals some HP, an acquired taste. And when you use it, it actually only heals about 4 HP. The Toriel battle is pretty much the same. She'll still intentionally try to not kill you. When you land the finishing blow, you are stronger than I thought. Listen to me, small one. We get the same little monologue as we did before, telling us to go on, go forward, warning us of Asgore. After my child, the annoying dog actually
Ora
walks
possiamo
in.
vedere che succede.
And that's the end of hard mode. Eh? You are ending it now? And on such a dramatic moment? That's the difficult part. Not the bullets, but accepting that it's all over. But there will be more, will there not? Maybe, knowing the answer is hard. Ha. Toriel stands up just fine. Hey, aren't you supposed to be dying or something? Well, what is the point of that now? What will you do instead? Perhaps I will bake another pie. That last one ended up a little burnt. And full of snails, but that's besides the point. I thought it was good. Theoretically, it's not like I ate it while you were fighting. Slight frustration and a turn as she walks away. Hey, can I have some pie? You were just going to eat it all. I can help. Snoring on the floor is not help. I'm not snoring. I'm cheering you on in my sleep. Oh, you're still here? Don't you have anything better to do? Well, not really.
Io sì, invece.
At which point it cuts away to Undertale hard mode. Coming. Maybe. Don't count on it. And that is the end of Undertale hard mode.
Ma Gesù.
We then get Flowey jumping in at the very end after you've sat here for a while.
Madonna, ancora non finisce.
Hey, what's the holdup? Shouldn't she be dead by now? I've been waiting in that room for... hard mode? Gee, you better take a picture. People are gonna think you're really cool. Not. Golly, talk about a tryhard. Pah! That tick. So, are you gonna keep going, or... It's over. I knew that. Why does everyone have to be so condescending? So what's your excuse, sitting around here? Don't you have anything better? I already said that. Then Flowey slips away and things fade out. Having the game restart. As you continue to spare, and she pleads for us to please go back, please go upstairs. And right as Toriel's about to let us truly go, the annoying dog walks in, and that's the end of hard mode. Regardless of if you do the genocide or pacifist version of this, you still get the same little bit of dialogue about aren't you supposed to be dying or something. It plays out the same, you just don't have Toriel standing back up on her feet. This is everything I can possibly think to share about the Undertale ruins for now. If anyone knows of anything major that I missed, I can absolutely revisit that in a future video. It's here, there's gonna be 2 little...
Ah, mamma mia, 40 minuti solo delle rovine. Spero non ci sia altro. Oddio, quanti video ancora? Oddio. Oh. Time to wake up and smell the pain. Though... it's still a little shaky. Come devo interpretarlo sto video, scusate? Cioè, non ha fatto una spiegazione, un'introduzione, nulla. Welcome to the sound test, listen to all your... Ok. Ma è lava con una faccia. Ma scusate. senza contesto non so quanto sia...
Undertale is a game full of experiences, choices, and consequences, so it's not too unlikely that players might want to go back and try to change some things. What most will not expect, however, is that Undertale actually remembers what you did, and it makes sense since different timelines and saving, those are all things that exist in the Undertale game world. In this video, I will show some examples of just how clever Undertale can be. I hope you like it, and let's begin. Pretty much the first thing you do in Undertale is already something the game will not forget. It's when you have to name the fallen human. Players will just assume that it's their character name, and maybe they want to restart eventually and choose a different name, but then they'll see that a name has already been chosen, and you can't rewrite history that easily.
Ah, interessante
This
questo.
next one is about your new best friend in the underground, Flowey the Flower. When you first meet Flowey, he will give you an introduction to a main game mechanic, but he has something a little different to say if you two have already met. Toriel cares about you, a lot, and she proves it by remembering your pie preference, even between timelines.
Oh. Questo sto facendo solo di reset nel reset. Urca.
Eventually, you will have to fight Toriel, and if you for whatever reason kill her in your playthrough, you might feel bad about it and regret it.
Vabbè, questo possiamo skipparlo perché l'abbiamo fatto. L'abbiamo visto.
Is one of the more mysterious, and he's interested in you and your determination, the ability to save. You can give him a hint about your powers as soon as you meet him if you already know what to expect. This is also something you can do during the puzzles. If you do them without any problems, Sans will mention how good you are at finding the solutions. In the snowy forest area, you will also meet Sans' brother, Papyrus. If you have already seen him before, you won't be the only one who feels like you two already know each other.
Lo so, mi somiglia.
Mettaton follows you around throughout a large section of the game. While his little act is pretty amazing to watch the first time, Frisk will already be bored of it the second time around.
You look bored. Skip this.
Near the end of the game, Sans will judge you for your every action. It's an important part of the game and really shows that Sans is more than just a random skeleton who tells jokes. But this is also where you can show Sans that timelines and time traveling exist once and for all.
Ah, questo si può più o meno fare.
Tale Secrets video. You can watch that if you're interested in seeing more.
Ok, sì, lo posso skippare.
The battle against Asgore is what your entire journey led up to. It's an epic moment, but there is something interesting about it. If you have already died to Asgore's attacks before, you can actually tell him
Sto
about
pensando
it.
se troviamo un modo per
Asgore will
vederlo mentre
acknowledge
faccio fuori
it, but his
classe.
response is only a silent nod. A lot of time passes until you see Flowey again after meeting him in the ruins. This entire part leads to a neutral ending, but if you redo the Asgore fight a few times afterwards, you can get some extra dialogue.
Skippa la fight? O forse no. Flowey Fan Club. Smiley trash bag. One Piece? Ma è come se stesse facendo il reset ogni volta. Ok. Oh mio Dio. Oh Madonna.
In the Genocide Run, your final challenge will
Megalovania
be the
jumpscare.
Sans fight. It's probably the most popular battle in all of Undertale and widely considered the most difficult. There are many times where Sans will mock you and try to break your determination. For example, each time you die, he can realize how many deaths he has caused you based on just Frisk's facial expression.
Che vuol dire? Ah, in quel senso. Questi posso skipparli in teoria, no? Okay, già
When you
fatto.
beat Sans eventually, you can continue and finish the Genocide Run. Now, if you regret doing it and want to do a pacifist playthrough, resetting the game and having everything back to normal, well, even Sans tried to stop you with all that he had. Because doing genocide is one thing that Undertale will never let you forget.
Questo appunto è la True Pacifist dopo la Genocide, no? Sto gioco è malato comunque. E questa invece è l'altra.
What is up, guys, and welcome to a special Undertale episode. This is going to be a follow-up for the first Undertale Secrets video I've done, and this time I want to explore some mysteries and secrets surrounding the character Gaster, and we are actually only seconds away from me showing you guys what the first thing on my list is. If you start a new game, the game tells you to name this.
Sì, quello di gas abbiamo fatto e resetta.
The next thing involves the river person, and if you take a ride in the boat, the river person will say a random thing each time. It doesn't matter where you go to, so I'm just going to take a ride, and I'm going to wait for a specific thing the river person can say. It can take 10 minutes, it can also be the first thing they say. That is not the thing I want them to say. So yeah, I'm just going to keep riding along until the river person says a specific thing, and we will see how long it takes.
Beware of the man who came from the other
Beware
world.
of the man who came from the other world. That is actually not the line I was looking for, but that's also interesting. I'm not even sure if that relates to Gaster.
Non è di
but
Gaster?
You will see in a few minutes. That is so similar to what I was searching for. That's interesting.
Oi, oi. Beware of the man who speaks
There we go.
in
That's
hands.
what I wanted. Beware of the man who speaks in hands. And that is actually very fitting. There isn't, I guess, any solid proof that this is about Gaster, but you will see later on in the video why this is so fitting. And that was the second thing I wanted to show you. We are in Temmie Village, and I will admit that this next secret doesn't directly relate to Gaster, but it's still a pretty cool thing, and there were some theories that it did relate to Gaster. What we have to do is we have to buy a Tem Flake, and if we then exit out and leave Temmie Village and go back to just Waterfall, we have to wait for an encounter with Temmie, and then I can show you what exactly I'm talking about. Yes! Okay. Special enemy Temmie appears, and what we have to do now is we have to actually feed Temmie flakes, and instead of doing the obvious right choice of giving Temmie some flakes, we have to select no.
Can't
And
blame a
this
bark
is
for
what
trying.
happens. And why oh my god, why I put this together with the Gaster secrets? I believe there were some theories that that little theme that played was a Gaster theme, a hidden Gaster theme. But later people found this and figured out that this was just a silly little thing you can do if you encounter Temmie. In the town of Snowdin, if you go into the center and then go up to the place where later on in the game the river person will show up, if your fun value is low enough, the fun value is a number that is random for every new run. If this number is low, then you will get this encounter.
Non ci abbiamo provato nell'ultima run, non siamo proprio andati sopra.
Hello, can I speak to G? And this right here, this is really the reason why people think that this is related to Gaster. Also because whether or not this happens depends on your fun value, and a lot of Gaster secrets actually do depend on this fun value. But if you continue here through this dialogue, wait a second, is this the wrong number? Then you will get this, the little song, and it's timed.
Mi è successo 2 volte.
The wrong number song. We're very, very sorry that we got it wrong. And this just carries on until you stop it. So I'm not sure if this is actually related to Gaster or just a silly little secret that you might encounter on your playthrough of Undertale, but nonetheless, a pretty cool thing. Near the beginning of Snowdin, up here there is a room with a fishing rod. However, if your fun value is 65 exactly, there is a chance that it will turn into something else, but it is only a chance, so I did not get lucky. So I will have to reset and try again until it happens. There we go. Welcome to the sound test. So this is something that can happen. This room can change into this. Listen to all your favorites. Press left or right to select C to play a song. The first one is called Happy Town, which sounds like a loop of the same thing over and over again. Next one is called Meat Factory, which sounds also like a loop, an even shorter one. Okay, Trouble Dingle is the next one. Another loop. You can hear that it repeats all the time, but of course the real reason why we're here in the first place, the actual secret and why this is about Gaster. This is it, the iconic Gaster theme. And the creepy thing here is, even if you try to go back and play another song, you can't. As soon as you play Gaster's theme, you cannot go back, and it will just play until this sound test ends. There it is. Thanks for your feedback.
Ah, meno male,
See
si
you
ferma,
soon.
certo.
So that's the entire secret. A pretty nice thing. You can actually encounter this if you just play Undertale normally. But of course, a very, very important secret for this episode, because this is actually the only way you can hear Gaster's theme. Gaster's theme is leading up pretty nicely to this, because now we are actually getting into the direct references and information about Gaster. If your fun value is 61, you can go to right floor 1, and this is also a chance. It might not happen. Maybe we're lucky and it will happen. Okay, no it didn't. So here, something should happen if we get lucky, so I will have to restart and try again. There he is. The first Gaster follower, as they are called. Alphys might work faster, but the old royal scientist, Dr. W.D. Gaster, one day, he vanished without a trace. They say he shattered across time and space.
Gaster followers.
How can I say so without fear? I'm holding a piece of him right here.
Wow.
That was the first encounter, spooky, and he was talking in rhymes and talking a bit about Gaster's history. So he was before Alphys, and something happened, and his life ended. For the next Gaster follower, your fun value has to be 62, and you have to go to left floor number 3. And we will see if we are lucky this time, if it shows up the first time. No, of course not. We got unlucky, so I will have to reset and try again. It makes sense why Asgore took so long to hire a new royal scientist. After all, the old one, Dr. Gaster, what an act to follow. They say he created the core. However, his life was cut short. One day, he fell into his creation and... Will Elphys end up the same way?
Huh?
So, if we go outside, this Gaster follower will disappear. And this is so interesting to me, and it actually confuses me, because how do they even know about Elphys? Because if Gaster was the royal scientist before Elphys, all these people shouldn't really know about Elphys, because she only got the job after Gaster vanished. So that is actually weird to me. And the third Gaster follower can appear in left floor number 2. And maybe third time's the charm, we will encounter this one on the first attempt.
Ooh.
Nice, there he is. And honestly, this one is just the most creepy looking, just a huge head. I understand why Asgore waited so long to hire a new royal scientist. The previous one, Dr. Gaster. His brilliance was irreplaceable. However, his life was cut short. One day, his experiment went wrong and... Well, I needn't gossip. After all, it's rude to talk about someone who's listening. Alright. So it's the same here. If we leave this place and go back, the head will be gone. And now, on second thought, that is actually interesting, because if it's true what this Gaster follower said, that Gaster is always watching or always listening, maybe it means that these Gaster followers and Gaster himself is maybe everywhere, and maybe not all powerful, but maybe because their existences were lost in time and space, they can like see all the things, but they cannot be found. They cannot interact anymore with this world. It's definitely interesting to think about. We are back in Waterfall, and this is back where Undyne first chases us and throws her spears at us. And if your fun value is really extremely high, and you happen to backtrack all the way to here, at the end of this, we will encounter a special character, a special person, and as far as I know, this is not a chance encounter, so this will actually happen every single time if your fun value is right. If you go back here, and we should be there soon, there it is. So at first glance, we can see that this looks very similar to the Monster Kid. Have you ever thought about a world where everything is exactly the same, except you don't exist? Everything functions perfectly without you. The thought terrifies me. And that's all it says. And this is actually interesting to me, because if we think back to what the other Gaster followers have said, they are all talking about being lost in time and space, and basically not existing. And now we have this gray monster kid talking basically about the same thing. And it's not just dying and stopping to exist, it's literally as if you've never existed in the first place. However, there is a bit more this monster kid can tell us, but for that we have to go a bit further first.
Okay.
And with the umbrella in hand, you can get this umbrella a few screens further. If you just continue on past Onion Sun, you can get an umbrella, backtrack again, back to here, and bring it to the Grey Monster Kid. There will be some short new dialogue, which I think is pretty important. Everything about these Gaster secrets, every little detail is important. If we talk now, an umbrella, but it's not raining. You know, that does make me feel a little better about this. Thank you. Please forget about me. Please don't think about this anymore. So, what I think, I have no idea, but how it feels to me is, since we have an umbrella and it's not raining, the umbrella is pointless. And I guess you can say in a way, its existence right now is meaningless. And that, I think, ties together pretty well with what the Monster Kid said. Think about a world where your existence is meaningless, everything functions perfectly, even without you, And I think even though it doesn't rain, we still have the umbrella. It makes the monster kid better. And that's all there is. The monster kid will stay here, I guess,
Se lo dici tu, amico mio.
and not be able to get back to this world. And we can't really do anything to help, which is super sad. And okay, we spent enough time hearing about Gaster. Now it's finally time to meet the man himself. So if we go along
Questo
this
l'abbiamo
hallway
visto
here,
prima.
did you notice something? This hallway is actually not supposed to be here. That hallway only appears if your fun value is 66. And there's also a low chance that something else happens in this hallway. Obviously, it didn't happen, so I will restart and try again. There it is,
Eccoci
the
qua.
door that only appears sometimes. And if we go inside, brace yourselves, this person will be standing in the center of the room, doing nothing. And if we also do nothing, nothing will happen. Nothing actually happens. We can still leave before it's too late. But if we decide to interact, he will vanish. And I guess, again, there isn't actually 100% proof that this is the real Gaster. But pretty much almost everyone agrees that this is the one and only Gaster. And this is definitely worthy of being the secret that shows us the true royal scientist. Definitely very rare and very unlikely that you encounter this without actually searching for it. But I can imagine that if anyone actually encounters this randomly, they would be really freaked out. And now there is only one secret left, which is definitely, I would say, the most special one and the most unique one, so get ready. Unlike the other secrets, this one you can't actually encounter just randomly. You do have to go into your files and change the room number. You want to get into room number 264, and as you can see, there isn't even any data available for this room. However, if we go inside, this happens. We get some text in Wingding's font and some very, very disturbing music in the background. I do have a translation here, so I will translate this text as it goes. Entry number 17.
Entry number 17.
Dark, darker, yet darker. The darkness keeps growing. The shadows cutting deeper. Photon readings negative. This next experiment seems very, very interesting. What do you two think?
Do you two think?
And that is all he wrote. That is all what presumably Gaster wrote. And this also leads back to what the river person first said. The man who speaks in hands. The Wingdings font, this font, does have some hand symbols. So this led many people to believe that the river person did actually talk about Gaster. And also that this is about Gaster. And this little entry alone just created so many theories and ideas about that Gaster knows Sans and Papyrus. Who does he actually talk to? Who are those two people? Also that this entry is supposed to be in the True Lab, but because Gaster was erased from existence, this entry also got erased from existence, and we now searched for it somehow with the whole Undertale meta knowledge, and we found it. It's interesting. There aren't really any answers for most of the questions, sadly, but in a way, this
Ma si
only
vede la
makes
faccia di
more and
Gaster.
more people
Ah, sì,
interested
dicevo.
and wanting to find out more stuff about Gaster's little special secret episode for.
C'è la faccia di Gaster. Non so se l'ha voluta come cosa, ma me ne sono accorto adesso io. Datemi un attimo, raga, ho bisogno di qualcosa da mangiare, che sto morendo. Fa male anche un po' la testa. Arrivo subito, eh. Metto la host dello shop intanto. I'll be right back.
Beware of the man who speaks in hands. Really? I find people who speak in sign language to be rather pleasant, actually.
Ah, ops. Sono tornato. A posto. Gli incubi.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where, deep breath, I think I'm finally ready to tackle Undertale again. But overly dramatic game theory voice aside, I gotta be honest with you, I'm scared of this game. So before we begin today's episode, I need to take a moment to level with you all, because it's time I pull back the curtain of the show a bit and address a couple things. Now don't get me wrong, I love this game. I really do, but doing episodes on Undertale have been some of the worst experiences that I've had in the 6 years of doing this show. The first was Sans' Nest, a theory I was so excited to share with you. In fact, it was one of, if not my favorite episode that we had done of Game Theory to date, because it allowed me an opportunity to talk about one of my favorite franchises growing up, Earthbound, as well as one of my favorite modern franchises of Undertale. And it was a fun episode. Now don't get me wrong, did I in any way think that this was canon lore to the series? No. Of course not. I didn't think that Sans is actually Nest, but at the end of the day, these are theories meant to get you to think about things from a different perspective. And let's be honest here, there are a lot of similarities between Earthbound and Undertale, okay? From visual design, to actual sound effects, to even the timelines of the games. But the overwhelming negativity and ridicule that video got was just crushing. It sucked, man.
Cos'è? Lo criticarono per la teoria?
Internet hate over the years.
Ah, sì,
I've gotten
di
through
sì.
the Sonic is Slow controversy. I've had literal petitions written to remove me from the internet for slandering Mario's name by calling him a
Madonna, la
sociopath.
gente è proprio cattiva a volte.
This one hurt, but it was nothing compared to the next time I talked about Undertale on the channel, when I was selected for the honor of meeting Pope Francis as one of the first 10 digital creators to introduce him to the world of online video. And as part of that, we were expected to give him a gift. So I gave him a copy of Undertale and then made a video talking about that. One, because it was such a huge honor for me, but two, because I was excited to share it with you. This was our achievement as a theorist
No,
community.
poi ti sei perso un pezzo di storia
gamers,
videoludica se non
online
conosci sto
digital
tizio.
creators and people who love online things. And the hate that video received in the first week. I mean, this was a video where I specifically talk about accepting others and saying no to hating other groups of people, and it got hate. You gotta love the internet sometimes, man. Now, I tend to stay quiet in situations like that, since I've learned that fighting back only seems to make the problem worse.
Sono molto
But
belli, dovresti
since
recuperarli.
I'm talking about Undertale, and since I know all of those comments are going to come flooding back on this video, I figured, let me address some of the misconceptions and errors that were leveled against me when I first released that video. One, I talked to the Pope about cyberbullying in schools. I did not, as many people wrongfully accuse me of, waste his time talking to him about video games or gamer problems. In fact, my entire conversation with the Pope is available on YouTube right now. If you had actually taken a couple minutes to do research before assuming and accusing me of things, would have actually saved me a lot of sleepless nights. 2, the gift of a game was symbolic.
No, non è
Of
questo
course,
il content.
the Pope isn't going to play a video game. But 3, if you thought that the gift of a video game was bad and had problems with that one, at least it was better than
Vabbè, un
a
minuto e parte.
surfboard, an illegal tree, and a YouTuber's self-written book about themselves. All things that the Pope also received as gifts that day. Which leads me to number 4. Yes, obviously other games talked about peaceful solutions before Undertale, but geez, I liked the game, it was recent at the time, and it was the Pope's Year of Mercy. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the word mercy appears a whole heck of a lot in Undertale. And lastly, number 5. I was selected via an application that I submitted for this opportunity as a representative of America, as a representative of gamers, and of online digital creators. I know a lot of people were upset that I was selected, and I'm sorry if you don't like me. But as someone who tries to advocate for science, logic, and critical thought, I did my best to put a good foot forward for all 3 of those different categories. And
Io
you
nel
know what?
frattempo
I
ho
did
fatto
my
pausa
best.
snack.
I tried. Anyway, enough of me talking on camera. Let's hop back into the video, because no need to see this on camera anymore. I just thought it was important to talk to you.
Ha ragione però comunque.
So, as you could probably tell, after those 2 videos, I wasn't super enthusiastic about tackling Undertale too much. Anyway, in the wake of all the tension going on in the world lately, I played through Undertale again and was filled with determination to try and do another episode on it. It was the most requested episode you loyal theorists wanted back when the game first came out, and to not cover it felt like just leaving the series unfinished, and I'm not the type to give up. So here we are, back in the ring for round 3 to answer everyone's biggest question about the series: who is Gaster? From what I can tell on Reddit, despite all the theorizing in the months after the game's release, it looks like most people ended up throwing in the towel, writing this mysterious character off as some code Toby Fox tossed in at the end of the development of the game to get people speculating, but without ever coming up with a fully fleshed out story of his own. I, however, disagree. After looking at all the evidence from a ton of different sources, in the game itself, in the game's code dug up from places like the Underminer community, from Toby Fox's own statements and my own scientific look at things, I think you can come up with a fairly solid theory of who Gaster is and what happened to him. So no more sins crawling up my back. I present to you my theory on WD Gaster. Part 1, because there's a lot to cover here. And like, seriously, if those opening stories weren't enough to convince you that I would love for this to be a single-parter, then I don't know what to tell you. I know 2-parters get a ton of hate, and the last thing that I want is more internet shade to be thrown at me on an Undertale video. But I want to give this theory the time and research that it deserves. So just trust me that it has to be 2 parts for my own sanity and to make this a better viewing experience for you. Because otherwise it would be an under-edited, overly rushed 1-part episode where I crammed in everything and didn't do a good job of explaining it all, okay? Wow, I am unloading all sorts of emotional baggage on this episode. All the stuff that has been weighing on me as a creator for the longest time. Let's start off with the easy stuff to get everyone on the same page, since it's possible that some of you are like, I've played Undertale all the way through 3 times. Neutral, Pacifist, and Genocide, watched Jack, Felix, and eventually Mark play it and still have no idea who you're talking about. Well, that's because your chances of running into any evidence of this character in the game is a slim 2.8%. That's right, I did the math. In other words, you could play through the game 100 times and you'd only find references to Gaster about 3 of those times. Holy Temmy Flakes, Batman, those are some slim chances. So let's back up for a bit and quickly talk about what we know about this character for sure. The first hints of Gaster came from the River Person and his now infamous line of "Beware the man who speaks in hands." Now obviously this got players more excited than an annoying dog with a stick, since, you know, there's no one in the game who does anything close to speaking in hands, and in a game already full of hidden secrets and vague clues, this appeared to be another big one. So they started digging. What they found were 4 gray NPCs, labeled in the game files as Monster Kid Goner and 3 G followers, or Gaster followers, with dialogue that provides us the only solid information that we have about this missing character. Through their text, we learned that Dr. W.D. Gaster was the royal scientist before Alphys, was responsible for building the core, i.e. the structure that provides magical power to the underground, and that he disappeared after falling into his creation, getting himself scattered across time and space. Although he may not be physically present, he's supposedly always around, since these guys are all super reluctant to discuss him openly. And beyond that, mostly everything else is speculation. There are these Mystery Man images in the game data that many speculate might be him, but flip this character upside down. Here, you don't have to imagine it, we can do it through the power of editing. And boom! This could also be him. See the face? Just like so many other things in this game, appearances may be deceiving. There's also this wispy white thing that could also be him according to online theories, but again, it's all just speculation. Game speculation. So where does all this speculation end up and the theorizing begin? Well, theories are hypotheses supported by evidence, so let's start gathering evidence. Now, whether or not the gray NPCs show up is based on a weird stat programmed into the code called the fun value. Basically, whenever you start a new game, Undertale picks a random number between 1 and 100. Depending on what number you get, different things happen in the game. It keeps things spicy, and also keeps things really similar to FNAF when you come to think about it. Seriously, are we sure that these 2 fan bases really hate each other? Cause no joke, between wacky animal hijinks, hidden plot mysteries, random Easter eggs, and large quantities of murdered children, the 2 franchises are a lot more similar than I think people want to admit. Anyway, these gray NPCs show up when the fun value is at 61, 62, 63, or higher than 90. And even if the number is there, they only have a 20% chance of showing up per game, which is why your chances of ever even seeing them is so low. Even creepier, if you have a fun value of 66, this eerie gray door appears in Waterfall. wall. When you walk through it, there's a chance that the mystery man appears. Touch him, and poof, he pieces out faster than a babysitter's boyfriend when the parents come home. And the fun value dictates more than just Gaster encounters in secret rooms. When you played Undertale, did you get a call from Sans about your refrigerator running? Or maybe someone called you with a wrong number and then you got a really random song out of it? Or Alfie's called to order some pizza? Well, all of those situations were dictated by your fun value. So why spend all this time talking about fun? Well, because it's the start of the mystery. If there's one thing we know, it's that in the world of Undertale, game mechanics aren't just game mechanics. Toby Fox makes it clear throughout the game that game mechanics make up the very fabric of the game's reality. These aren't just artificial, invisible layers on top of the story for players to use while interacting with the game. These rules, from saving to loading and everything in between, all encompass the actual physical laws of Undertale's universe, much like quantum mechanics and general relativity define ours. Character stats like LVLs or levels of violence, and EXP or execution points in any other game would be numbers relevant only to the player. But in Undertale, they're real, tangible values that characters, most notably Sans, can sense and judge. So if fun is what dictates the appearance or non-appearance of a bunch of these characters connected to Gaster, well, then it behooves us to figure out what fun actually is in the context of the game. And if you are under the mistaken impression that fun is a sense of childlike glee that often comes with playing a game, then you are wrong. You're just wrong. The fun value in Undertale is the embodiment of the very real theory from quantum mechanics known as the many worlds interpretation. It's a favorite of mine here on Game Theory, applicable to everything from the Zelda timeline to the Pokemon universe, so since we've covered it a few times, I'm not going to go in depth here. Click the eye icon in the upper right hand corner to check out those videos where I spend a bit more time explaining it. Long story short, the many worlds interpretation involves the measurement of photons and wave particle duality, but in a nutshell, imagine you're starting a new game of Undertale. You have the option of either going true pacifist or genocide. Now, in that moment, according to the laws of quantum mechanics, it doesn't matter which you choose. If you choose a pacifist run, there's an alternate reality where you went full-on homicidal maniac, and vice versa. All possible realities simultaneously exist. Each time you're presented with an option to either kill or show mercy to a new character, two new timelines are created, one for each option. And this is where we get back to Gaster and his followers. You see, if you find him, Goner Kid speaks the following line: have you ever thought about a world where everything is exactly the same, except you don't exist? Well, in my first playthrough of the game, that's exactly what happened. A world where he didn't exist. In fact, I must have gotten a really lame fun value since I didn't find anyone mentioning Gaster. No secret rooms, no one even wanted to call me. Truly, I was forever alone. But there are realities where he does exist, and where Sans does pick up the phone to call you. In short, think of each new fun value as another world in the many worlds interpretation. Another timeline. Parallel realities where one small detail is different. Goner Kid does or does not exist. Alfie's does or does not order pizza. So the next time someone tells you to go outside and have some fun, all you really gotta do is create an alternate reality in your own backyard. Simple as that. But not only does this fun value make repeated playthroughs of the game interesting, but it makes a world, pun intended, of difference when it comes to Gaster's storyline. From speaking to the Gaster followers, we know that an experiment went wrong and Gaster was shattered across time and space. Those are some pretty specific words. First, shattered, as in pieces of him went in many different directions. There are multiple pieces of Gaster that now exist. And then there are the operative words of time and space, meaning that these pieces ended up across many different timelines. The many different worlds, each represented by a different fun value. But what other characters do we know are able to retain memories across multiple different timelines? Only two, Flowey and Sans. Flowey tells us at the end of the Genocide run that he's lived hundreds, if not thousands of timelines, doing everything under the sun from being nice to people to torturing them. And in the True Pacifist run, Asriel, Flowey's true identity, makes mention of being able to destroy this timeline once and for all. Asriel even says the following lines: every time you die, your friends forget you a little more. Your life will end here in a world where no one remembers you. It's a really specific thing for Asriel to know, that killing something over and over again will cause the memories of it to fade in everyone's mind. In fact, we may even know someone who he's done this to. Goner Kid. Azrael's speech during the final battle is a direct parallel to the same lines we just saw Goner Kid speak a few minutes ago. A world where he no longer exists. The thought terrifies him, almost as though Azrael did this to him to the point where he does no longer exist. Sans, on the other hand, isn't as powerful as Flowey from a time manipulation perspective, but he does bend the laws of space around him, phasing through walls, and during his battle continually teleports over and over and over again. Though he doesn't show the ability to save or reload like Flowey does, he openly acknowledges that there are other Sanses out there in other realities and tells you to say hello to them. He has tests in place to see if someone is a time traveler. And even though he can't outright control time, he has at least some deeper understanding of timelines being manipulated, as evidenced by his various dialogue options when you fight him over and over during the final genocide battle, sensing how many times he's beaten you. So is it any wonder that the two characters who together manipulate time and space both wield weapons that look like this, and that, at least for Sans, this weapon, according to the sprite files, happens to be called a Gaster Blaster, or that for Flowey, this is the weapon that he specifically calls out will destroy the timeline. In fact, as you can imagine, there's a lot more to say about the Sans-Flowey-Gaster connection, but before we do, let's quickly recap. Gaster, the man who speaks in hands and the royal scientist before Alphys, is an entity only known about through his 4 followers, ones that only appear in certain timelines of the game. These timelines are ultimately dictated by a random fun value. With him being shattered across time and space, he must share some connection with the other 2 characters that seemingly straddle time and space, Flowey and Sans, and indeed he does in the form of his Gaster Blasters. But there's more. So much more. From the determination experiments to information found in the True Lab, to Toby Fox's Twitter, to the pivotal clue that makes sense of all of this, the word search. No joke. But that's for next time when we...
Oddio, sta roba me la ricordo. L'avevo vista, mi sa.
We hop into deep lore talk, neuroscientific analysis, and much more to finally reveal the truth behind WD Gaster. So make sure you ring the subscription bell for the notification of when that video is coming out by clicking right here, and you'll be the first to see it.
Video?
We're just about 10 days from now if you're watching this the day it's
Non
uploaded,
c'è.
so it's not that long. You know
Ma
it's
scusa,
coming, it's not
la
like...
parte 2 non c'è? Cioè dice che in 2 parti non avete messo la parte... Sì, ha fatto la parte 2, l'ho detto più volte. Dovrebbe essere questo, suppongo. Cioè no, bugia, questo è questo. Dovrebbe essere questo. Descrizione. Perché ho dato il papa a Undertale? Sì, è scritto seconda parte, l'aveva detto, Ma l'ha detto nel video. O sono l'unico che capisce l'inglese qua?
Doctor Who Part 3, which is existing in this nebulous, non-existent world. There's a final date to this one. And hey, you know what? There's
Però
even gonna be a
si
For
parla
Honor game
comunque di
theory
teorie
that's sandwiched in next.
di... No, però non mi interessa. Come no? Sì, che l'aveva fatta, dai. Conoscendo Matpat è sempre stato così. What the fuck is going on here? Dovrebbe essere questo. Non mi ha caricato il video. Dovrebbe essere questo a sto punto.
What did Papyrus say the first time he served spaghetti to Frisk? Bon appetit! Speaking of puns, why does Sans...
C'è una terza parte anche in realtà. C'è un bordello di roba riguardo. Sì, non funzionava il link. Cioè, portava sul suo canale, ma non sul... Facciamo notte così, però. Undertale Theories. Su Gaster ce ne sono almeno 3, mi sa. Questo di quanto tempo fa invece? Gesù Cristo. E mo? Cioè, allora raga, io farei una cosa a sto punto. Se volete concludiamo almeno il secondo video. Però se facciamo anche quello non finiamo più... Io farei una pausa in realtà, siamo a quasi... Andremo sulle 4 ore così. Poi c'è tutta roba for fun. No, concludiamo la primissima, cazzo, però cioè, ha detto roba su Gaster, ma di base non ha detto niente. Io dovrei vedere la seconda parte, io sono curioso, mo. Cioè, vi mandate la roba a vicenda, ma nessuno controlla però il contenuto. Figa. Guardiamoci la seconda parte e poi decidiamo.
Gaster.
No, questa è la terza parte. Questa è la seconda parte.
Love puns so much. Oh, I know. It must be because he finds them humorous. No need to show me the door. I'll see myself out. Thanks.
Ah. È fortissimo, aiuto.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where don't worry, I'm not going to stay on camera nearly as long this episode. I just wanted to pop on real quick at the beginning here to say thank you. Thank you for the incredible support that you guys gave me during the last episode. Part 1 of this Undertale series was incredibly intimidating to put up because it was so personal, and it had me unloading so much emotional baggage I've been carrying around for almost a year. The outpouring of support that came in the aftermath of that video, in the comments on social media, on Twitter, it was overwhelming. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for being there for the last 6 years, and for being there on a video that I was really nervous about. Even more than that, the people I want to thank the most are the haters on those original videos who went into the comments on Twitter and apologized for some of the comments that they made. I know that we live in a day and age where people are afraid to be wrong, and so to actually go out and say that you were sorry for comments that you made was incredibly brave. Thank you for that, and thank you for being an inspiration to the internet as a whole. We could all use a little bit more of that. So anyway, just want to say thank you a whole bunch. This is a really long episode with a lot of information, so I'm going to get off camera now and go back to voiceover land. Gotta hop back into the closet. So thank you, and enjoy Undertale Part 2. Let's talk Gaster. The missing royal scientist who created the core, fell into its creation, and was shattered across time and space. Last time, we learned about the Gaster followers, fun values, the idea of parallel timelines, the space and time manipulation of Flowey and Sans, and the connection to their weapons, the Gaster Blaster for Sans, and the Hyper Goner Timeline Destroyer for Flowey. Also, real quick, I didn't bring it up last time, but Hyper Goner? It's a weird name for that weapon, right? Weirder still, though, is that it shares the name Goner Kid, one of those monsters who's always associated with Gaster. Coincidence? Maybe, but I think it really supports the idea that Goner Kid, like Gaster, is someone who has been wiped clean from across the timelines. But that was all last time. Having now laid the groundwork for this entire theory, it's time to get into the nitty-gritty, with some details that I guarantee that you haven't heard anywhere else, and that I also guarantee will blow your mind about this game. But to begin, we have to start with perhaps the darkest area in all of Undertale, the True Lab. It's an area of the game that you can only access if you're doing a true pacifist playthrough, and inside are some of the darkest secrets from the entire game. According to the entries found in the computer screens throughout the lab, Elfies, the royal scientist after Gaster, experimented with injecting determination, defined as the will to keep living and the resolve to change fate, into comatose monster bodies in an attempt to create souls strong enough to break the barrier keeping the monsters trapped in the underground. Of course, it turns out that the soul itself has to already be strong, and since all the souls of all the monsters in the underground added together don't even amount to the strength of one human soul, the results of these experiments are downright terrifying. Instead of creating stronger monster souls, these experiments yielded horrific monsters melted together, fused bodies that turned into shambling creatures called amalgamates. And if that wasn't bad enough, during these experiments, Elfies not only injected monsters with determination, but also injected a tiny yellow flower. Wonder if that was a good idea. And thus, the main antagonist of the entire freaking game was born. GG, science. GG. Now, most of you watching probably already know that story. You're actually expected to piece it together bit by bit from numbered lab entries scattered throughout that area of the game. But only the truly astute players will notice that one number is missing. Entry 17. Is this just an error by Toby Fox? Did you lose count, buddy? 14 teen, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20? What do you say? Nope. If you edit the game files manually and set your location to room number 264, an otherwise inaccessible room in the game, you find contained inside entry 17. And what it says is bone-chilling. Unlike all the others, this entry is written in the font of Wingdings. And if you translate those random symbols into English, it says the following. Quote, entry number 17, dark.
Ah, l'avevo visto prima questo. È vero, era dentro un lab, non era stato specificato.
Photon readings negative. This next experiment seems very, very interesting. what do you two think? What we have just read is Gaster's final letter. But how do we know? Well, the entry is written in the font Wingdings. Definitely not one you see people dipping into all that often. And at this point, it's widely accepted that the WD in WD Gaster's name is meant to stand for the font Wingdings, just like Sans is Comic Sans and Papyrus is Papyrus. This explanation would also account for the whole man who speaks
ok, adesso ha senso per la teoria, sì.
Wingdings is the only font ridiculous enough to have actual hands as letters, but more on that one later. What I want to note first is that this entry reveals what happened to Gaster. Based on the Gaster follower dialogue we covered last time, we know that he fell into, quote, his creation. But it's not specified that his creation is necessarily the core. In fact, I would hazard to say that it's not. What Entry 17 tells us is that Gaster, not Alphys, created the determination extractor and then tested it on himself. Now, don't get me wrong, what we actually see in-game was the result of Alphys' work, but she based a lot of her research on the work of Gaster. How do we know? Well, Alphys mentions blueprints in Lab Entry 5, but she does so in a way that doesn't lead me to believe that she actually created those blueprints. The exact entry reads, "I've done it. Using the blueprints I've extracted it from the human souls. I believe this is what gives their souls the strength to persist after death. Determination." Look at the phrasing here. She didn't say her blueprints worked. She didn't say her device or her research, just the blueprints, which implies to me that they were just laying around.
Che siano quelle nella stanza segreta.
In a secret lab behind Sans and Papyrus's house. There, on the table, blueprints for a mysterious machine, written in symbols. Symbols or wingdings, perhaps. Not only this, but look at the device she ends up building from these blueprints. The determination extractor looks a whole lot like an animal skull. The same skull-like shape of the Gaster Blaster and the Hyper Goner, Gaster's signature shape. But lastly on this topic, just look at the Mystery Man sprites. The design is droopy, slightly melted, just like the other monsters Alphys infused with determination, the Amalgamates. And just like Undyne before her death, who melts because she's too determined for her own good. Determination melts monsters. Thus, the melted sprite of Mystery Man seems to imply that Gaster himself fused his body with excessive amounts of determination. But let's hop back to entry 17. Look at the language here. The darkness keeps growing, the shadows cutting deeper. Cutting. This reads not like a room that's slowly losing light, but rather like a man who's being broken apart, losing control of himself and his identity. And as we discussed last time, Gaster's followers confirm that he was indeed shattered across time and space in the aftermath of his experiment. So now that we have a fairly strong suspicion about what happened to him, is that it? Where is he now? Have we solved the mystery of WD Gaster? No, not yet, because I'm about to convince you that WD Gaster is Sans. Mind blown? Well, get ready because I'm not done. WD Gaster is also Papyrus. My theory is that in being shattered, half of Gaster's brain got infused into Sans, and the other half went to Papyrus. Now, I already know that you're gonna start drawing parallels to the over-the-top claim that Sans is Ness. And yeah, I am saying that Sans is Gaster, so start the memes, go ahead, go for it. But keep an open mind, because I have a ton of evidence supporting this idea. And I'm gonna hit you with one hard piece of evidence right off the bat, since I know winning you over on this topic is gonna be an uphill battle. So obviously Sans and Papyrus are named after fonts, and as we already discussed, it seems like Gaster is the same, being named after Wingdings. Plus, all three are skeletons, so already there's some weird connection there.
Beh, oddio, lui non scheletro è argomentabile,
name. It's WD Gaster. Wingdings, sure, but what's this Aster part all
Aster?
about? Well, Aster is a font with serifs. You know, those little hooks on the ends of letters to make them more readable? It's a font that, well, not exact, closely resembles the font of Sans' Z's when he falls asleep during his genocide battle. And that, in and of itself, is a bizarre choice for a character who does everything else in a non-serifed font of Comic Sans. So WD Gaster, a skeleton-looking character with a name made up of two fonts, has pieces of him divided up into the two other skeletons who each have a single font name, and one just so happens to have text that closely resembles an Aster font. It's a lot of weird coincidences to to account for. And if you think the idea of one creature creating two others is far-fetched, then look no further than the amalgamates. One creature made from multiple others glued together by determination experiments. Or take for instance Shyren. On the official Tumblr of Undertale, Toby Fox, in character as Sans, immediately after making a clear reference to Gaster, mentioning someone who's listening, suggests doing research about Shyren. So I did, and found a fact that most other players don't know about. The head and body of the sprite that you fight in the game are actually two different beings, but an optical illusion makes them look like they're one single creature. It's odd, isn't it, that Toby would call attention to this unless Gaster himself was a sort of illusion, one character split across several others. But let's continue, since this is a pretty massive claim and I still don't expect you to be convinced yet. When asked about Papyrus and Sans, the Snowden shopkeeper explains that the Skelebros just showed up one day and asserted themselves. It's a weird origin story. They're not like the other monsters. They're different in some way. Well, them being the result of a failed experiment would explain why they just showed up one day. They literally popped into existence out of a different timeline. Need proof? Happy to provide. Look no further than the fact that Sans' song on his date and in his lab is named It's Raining Somewhere Else. That somewhere else is a different timeline, as it parallels the line Goner Kid himself says, quote, an umbrella, but it's not raining. Yeah. It's raining somewhere else. A kid from a lost timeline randomly talking about the rain? I don't think that's just a random coincidence. It's Toby's way of showing how this kid and the Gaster followers from these various timelines are all connected to the Skelebros. It would also explain Sans' strange hatred for humans. For a guy who seems so laid back about so many things, during your date with him, he gets deadly serious. He outright admits that if he hadn't made a promise to Toriel to protect your character, quote, you'd be dead where you stand. Sure, he plays it off as a joke afterward, but you just don't joke about stuff like that. And we all know Sans' no-eye pose is his serious face. But why would Sans care about a human walking around? He doesn't really seem to care about anything else except for Papyrus. Well, if he truly is a part of Gaster, who shattered while trying to replicate the powers of human determination, then that's a pretty solid reason to hate mankind. He's got a vendetta, a grudge. Sans also has a direct connection with the Royal Scientist's lab. In a patch that came after the game's release, if the player calls Papyrus twice on the top floor of the lab, he'll say that the bag of dog food in that room looks familiar, that Sans had it in his room for a while. We also see in some versions of the True Pacifist ending that, in a surprise to all the characters, Alphys and Sans know each other. When Papyrus calls out this out-of-nowhere revelation, Alphys starts to get super nervous, until Sans deflects the question and everyone moves on. It's almost like the two of them are hiding something. But here's the clincher, a detail that, to my knowledge, no one has picked up yet. We've all assumed that all the lab entries, except for the one in Wingdings, were written by Alphys, as she conducts her determination experiments. But the truth is, they're not. There's another author for about half of them, and that author is Sans. Pay close attention to the text of the entries. Half are grammatically correct, with proper punctuation and capitalization. The other half are entirely in lowercase. Who else in the game not only speaks in lowercase, but according to the note in his room, is also confirmed to write in lowercase? Sans. It all seems to indicate that the "what do you two think" at the end of Gaster's entry number 17 refers not to Sans and Papyrus, but rather to Sans and Alphys, who are staying silent about what happened to Gaster that day. And all of this isn't even mentioning Sans' lines about wanting to go home or
Vabbè, che Sans parla in Comic Sans, vabbè, sì, ma sono documentazioni. Lasciare la documentazione scritta in Comic Sans, là è fin troppo ovvio. Gli altri dettagli che dice, tipo il fatto che scrive sempre con la lettera minuscola e che ci siano errori grammaticali, lo fa alludere, però così non lo rende scontato. Sono scritti digitali, appunto.
Go back. He says as much during his dinner date scene at the Metaton Hotel. He notices that the player must want to go home and says, buddy, I know the feeling. And in the genocide run during his boss fight, he says, look, I gave up trying to go back a long time ago. So where does he want to go back to? The surface? That's not it. In his very next line of dialogue, he says, and getting to the surface doesn't really appeal to me anymore either. Keyword there being either. He wants to go back home, but to him, home isn't a place. It's a time, a different timeline, a different state of being. It's obvious that Sans was trying to fix something for a long time and just couldn't. The thing he's trying to fix is Gaster. But perhaps Sans is the easy one to convince you of. He has weird space-bending powers and knowledge of other timelines. His room is filled with metaphysical things, and he's the one with the key to the secret workshop. He openly acknowledges timelines and research about anomalies in the time-space continuum and breaks the fourth wall. But Papyrus? He exhibits none of that. How could he, the great Papyrus, be wrapped up in all of this? And why would I possibly say something as ballsy and specific and as extreme as they're two halves of the same brain? That is me making a huge final claim for this theory. Well, that's for the final episode on this topic, where we tie up all the lingering mysteries of Undertale. I've already crammed a ton of stuff into this episode to make it into a manageable length, and I don't want to rush through some of these awesome final revelations, so next time we tackle the lies of Papyrus, the neuroscience of Undertale, and how it all serves as our biggest clue to who these characters really are. But in the meantime, theorists, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Seriously though, I'm sorry that this turned into a 3-parter. It was meant purely to stop at 2, but as I kept digging and writing, I kept finding more and more that I had to cover. Contrary to what many...
Allora, abbiamo un problema. Siamo già a mezz'ora di video in più rispetto a quelli che dovevamo vedere, e io puntavo per finire massimo per le 8. Se ci vediamo anche il resto della roba, non finiamo. Io dovrò interrompere per andare a cenare, e in realtà mi fa anche un po' male la testa perché ho dormito poco a causa orario di ieri. Possiamo fare una cosa. Io direi ci vediamo l'ultimo video di MatPat, la terza parte su Gaster, e per oggi stacchiamo, ok? E ci vediamo il resto di quello che mi avete lasciato, però vedo che manca roba, mi sa, mi avete detto in un video che non c'era, quello Undertale in 20 minuti, ma non mi pare di vederlo. No, non c'è. Io penso sono 40 minuti. Lo so, ma è tanta roba, raga. Io dovrò bollarvi a una certa per cenare, non so quanto convenga. A sto punto lo facciamo... domani pomeriggio potremmo farlo. Stasera la volevo fare, però so che c'è gente che non sta e in realtà forse c'ho pure impegni per oggi. Quindi al massimo possiamo... se avete altra roba da accumulare, magari raccoglietela con più calma. Che secondo me mancano pezzi. Poi magari ci vediamo altra roba di Matt, perché alla fine lui è broken con queste cose, con questi video. Sono molto interessanti. Però io concluderei con Gaster. Ma anzi, è vero, non ci sono, perché ho chiesto di avere anche le robe sulle speedrun di Undertale. Magari ci teniamo anche quelle per vedere come viene rotto il giochino. Ne ho visto appena uno consigliata, è del tizio che abbiamo visto prima, perciò direi che possiamo... a malincuore non volevo ridurmi affatto, perché altrimenti avrei staccato anche un'oretta fa. Però facciamoci un ultimo video, poi pausa. Io ho bisogno di staccare un po', riprendere aria. E eventualmente potremmo riprendere domani pomeriggio. Si può fare secondo me. Sì, vediamo Gaster adesso. Entità di Gaster. Che palle, ci sono cascate di nuovo.
Speaks in hands and the royal scientist before Alphys,
Gesù
only known
Cristo.
about through his 4 followers, only appear in certain timelines of the game. With him being shattered across time and space, he must share some connection with the other 2 characters that seemingly straddle time and space, Flowey and Sans, and indeed he does in the form of his Gaster Blaster. Entry 17. It says the following: darker yet darker, the shadows cutting deeper, photon readings negative. This next experiment seems very, very interesting. What do you two think? Based on the Gaster follower dialogue, he fell into, quote, his creation. Gaster himself
No,
fused his
sul
body with
finale,
excessive
sul finale.
amounts
Finiamo
of
questo e stacchiamo.
determination. WD Gaster
Vado a dormire,
is
sono
Sans.
le 7 di
WD
sera.
Gaster is also Papyrus. Papyrus? How could
Ok,
the
adesso.
great Papyrus be wrapped up in all of
Se devi
this?
dormire vai, non ti preoccupare.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory and to part 3 of the Who is Gaster trilogy. Last time, I left you with an absurd claim that Sans and Papyrus are the two halves of Gaster's fractured brain. It is, without question, one of the most extreme claims that I've ever made in the history of the show. And I have claimed that the FNAF story has been wrapped up like no less than 5 times, so it's pretty bad. And so far, I'd say I've done a fairly good job of covering the literal butt-ton of information on how Sans fits into all this. His connection with the True Lab, his knowledge of bending time and space, his desire to go back, his serif-laden font that appears when he falls asleep, his theme song's connection with Goner Kid, the Gaster Blasters, the secret room behind his house, the bros appearing out of nowhere to assert themselves, Sans' irrational hatred towards humans, the whole Shire and his two halves to create a single entity thing. All of that. Do you see now why this had to be in 3 parts? And that's only a portion of everything that we've covered. But today,
esce una quarta parte, io
get
uccido qualcuno.
scientific with the Skelebros. Because when you stop and look at some of the weird details that Toby Fox included about these two characters, you start to realize that their connection goes much deeper than just being mere brothers. Oh, and I'm not done. We're concluding this whole 3-episode series by revealing the fact that Papyrus isn't nearly as naive as he lets on. Sure, he may play innocent enough, but behind that basketball shoulder pad wearing, spaghetti loving, Starman posing, cool dude facade is someone who is deep with Sans and Alfie's and the Gaster experiments. These 3 game theories are a trilogy bigger than Mass Effect, and hopefully with a more satisfying ending. Star Children, really? Go home, BioWare. You're drunk. And don't you dare for a second make Mass Effect Andromeda your sloppy seconds. It's coming out in March and we've barely seen anything about it. I am concerned. So I promised you science, and doggone it, we're gonna start with science. Specifically, the neuroscience of Undertale. Now, I'm pretty sure that you've probably heard the old adage by now that the two halves of the brain handle different parts of human functioning. The left is analytical and the right is creative. Now, while this may not be 100% scientifically accurate, it does have some basis in scientific reality. In the late 1960s, a man named Roger Sperry wanted to explore the extent to which the two halves of the human brain could function independently. To do this, he took some volunteers and severed their corpus callosum, aka the nerve fibers that carry signals between the two halves of the brain. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you gotta read the fine print when you sell your body to science. Oh, hey, I'm just a college student in need of some extra date money. Cindy in women's studies. She's pretty cute. Welcome to the experiment, kid. We're cutting your brain in two. Gee willikers, scientist, that sounds dangerous. Ah, those nerves aren't important. Here's $20. Nighty-night. Now where's my Nobel Prize? Okay, but in all seriousness, this guy wasn't just hacking away at McNugget-starved brains. In ye olden days of the 60s, this is actually how they cured extreme cases of epilepsy, by dividing the brains right down the middle. And although the patients were able to live normal lives, every so often a strange functional gap would start to pop up. Not being able to identify something that they saw, having trouble with a word, perceiving something on one side of the body but not on the other. So Sperry studied these perceptual gaps and confirmed that the two halves of the brain are indeed specialized in specific functions. The left brain is the verbal and logical center. It can break down numbers and words and analyze situations. Conversely, the right brain is the nonverbal and intuitive center. It thinks in pictures or patterns. It's involved when you're making a map or giving directions, but can only produce rudimentary words and phrases. However, it contributes the emotional context to language. In the words of Sperry himself, the great pleasure and feeling in my right brain is more than my left brain can find the words to tell you. Get it? because the right brain has feelings, but the left brain is the one who does all the talking? Anyway, it'll all make sense when we look at how this applies to Gaster and the two Skelebros. Papyrus dreams big. He wants to capture humans to impress Undyne and wants to join the Royal Guard. The cares in his world are whimsical. He likes japes and gags and even wears a caped costume at all times. Sans also mentions that Papyrus gets cranky without a bedtime story. He wears his emotions on his Starman-inspired sleeve, becoming flustered if the player even hints at flirting with him. Basically, Papyrus seems very emotionally driven. He's very much the right brain. Sans, on the other hand, seems a lot more analytical and logical than his brother. He's very sarcastic, dry, witty, clever. At times, it's difficult to tell if he's being serious or very, very threatening. He's also shown to be extremely intelligent. While Papyrus takes a little bit of time to figure out that the player's human, Sans sees it immediately. And in Genocide runs, Sans sees through the player's facade for the monster that they are. He even asks them to continue pretending to be a human for Papyrus's sake. Sans, for all his joking, is very logical, interested in science and the time-space continuum, driven by reasoning. He's the left brain. And sure, those surface connections are all well and good, but I wouldn't be making this claim if it didn't go a whole lot deeper. So let's take a minute to look at the Skelebros puzzle section in Snowdin. Throughout this iconic section of the game, Papyrus and Sans present you with various challenges to block your progress. Papyrus's challenges are all spatially focused, doing things like forcing you to map out a walking path so as not to step on the same switch twice, puzzles that require the right brain to solve. On the other hand, the one challenge that Sans presents you with, the Monster Kids word search, a language-based task, is one specifically oriented from the left brain. So are the left and right halves of your mind blown yet? Well, if not, it keeps going. One detail I always thought was weird was the game going out of its way to tell you which type of puzzle in the newspaper the two brothers find more difficult. Sans insists that the word search is harder, but Papyrus thinks that the word jumble is harder. A word jumble involves taking a series of letters, breaking them down and rearranging them to find the words that's made of those letters. It makes sense then that Papyrus, as the right brain, would find it more difficult. It's about forming words, a specifically language-based process, and why Sans, as the left brain, would find it easier. On the other hand, a word search, while still a left brain activity, involves identifying already existing words within a giant collage of letters. Since it's just identifying patterns of existing letters, it would make sense why the creative pattern-based Papyrus would find that easier, and why Sans would think it's a bit harder than the jumble. It's crazy, right, how these details line up? But if that still wasn't enough, even the humor of these two matches up with their appropriate brain hemisphere. Papyrus, as the right brain, would be much more prone to physical comedy, his so-called japes. Sans, as the left brain and linguistics center, would get endless amounts of joy out of wordplay. Things like, say, bad puns. Oh well, wouldn't you know? In fact, that's why so many of you get such cringy joy out of my bad puns on Twitter. As theorists, most of us, myself included, are analytical left brains, so a witty turn of phrase will keep us raffle-coptering for days. Then there's the true pacifist ending, where Papyrus doesn't know the word for sun, having to rely on Sans to tell him. Yet another language-based knowledge item, and yet another odd detail that gets explained away by the split brain theory. Even their handedness aligns. Sans greets the protagonist with a handshake using his left hand, holds and drinks a ketchup bottle with his left hand while dining at Grillby's, steers a tricycle using his left hand in the true pacifist credits, and even manipulates gravity during the genocide boss battle with, you guessed it, his left hand. Now, admittedly, we don't get to see Papyrus move quite as much, but he does scratch his chin with his right hand, an action you would be a lot more comfortable doing with your dominant side.
No,
and
Papyrus
yes, a quick
il
disclaimer,
braccio.
since I know it's going to appear in the comments, I know that handedness is at least partially controlled by the opposite hemisphere of the brain, but I'm saying from a symbolic left-right perspective and not a functional one. But just like the slap chop guy, I'm still not done, because if we want to dive into semantics, we can even use the names of the skeletons to connect them even further. As we mentioned last episode, W.D. Gaster's name appears to be a combination of two different fonts, Wingdings and Aster. Wingdings is a completely silly font. It's a joke, nearly unreadable to anyone who doesn't know how to decode it. This lines up with the ridiculous, scheming Papyrus. Aster, on the other hand, is a very serious, very color between.
Qualcuno può tipo fare uno screen così e mandarlo ad Asta per nessun motivo al mondo, vi prego.
It's a joke, nearly unreadable to anyone who doesn't know how to decode it. This lines up with the ridiculous, scheming Papyrus. Gaster, on the other hand, is a very serious, very color between the lines, normal-looking font. And this lines up with Sans, who, despite his jokester appearance, is very serious underneath, casting judgment on you in the final minutes of the game, holding down multiple jobs, having some mysterious role in the determination experiments, being very focused into his research on the time-space continuum. So yeah, that's why I think the two halves of Gaster's mind are now embodied in the two Skelebros. When you actually take a step back and look at all the details that just fit into this theory, there's a lot of them. Their behavior fits unbelievably well. Their names and visual design are undeniably related. And in addition to everything else we've covered, the fact that the two brothers appeared out of nowhere and exist separately from the rest of the other monsters in Underground is also really telling. But it does leave us with one last question. Why would Sans be aware of their origins while Papyrus isn't? Papyrus seems ignorant to everything in the secret lab behind the house and didn't even know that Sans and Elfies had a history of working together. So why doesn't he have Gaster blasters or any knowledge of the time-space continuums? Anything like that? Well, who's to say he doesn't? For as innocent as he behaves, he's in just as deep as Sans. The evidence doesn't pop up too often, but every once in a while he'll slip and reveal just how much he really knows. First, similar to Sans, he clearly knows about different timelines and the ability to manipulate actions across them. After going to some extreme lengths across different saves and reloads to convince Sans that you're a time traveler, he finally gives you a key to his room to reveal the truth. Go in and what you find will shock you. He tricks you into running on a treadmill. Funny, sure, but the real mind blow here is when Papyrus enters and asks, "Is Sans pranking you across time and space?" I hate it when he does that. So clearly he knows about Sans's timeline hopping and isn't weirded out by it. Then, in the true pacifist ending, Papyrus exclaims that this is the worst ending since he's not a royal guard. Haha, that's funny. But wait, what? Saying that this is the worst ending implies that he knows other endings are possible, again demonstrating a knowledge of different timelines he seemed ignorant of for the rest of the game. And then what about his connection with Gaster? Well, like Sans, he's also able to manipulate gravity, once again implying that they are two halves of the same whole. It's also worth noting that it's the only one of the soul modes that actually manipulates a spatial law. Green gives you a shield, yellow is had by pressing a button, and purple is a bunch of spider webs, but blue changes gravity. It's no small feat, but it goes beyond that. In one of the patches to the game, if you stop a genocide run by sparing Papyrus, he says that it's good you stopped when it did. If you hadn't, he would have had to use his special attack, and that the player would have been, quote, blasted. He then quickly changes the subject, but it's an odd choice of words, right? Blasted seems to imply him also having the ability to use a Gaster blaster. And just to clarify, his special attack is not changing the heart to blue because he starts referencing the special attack after turning the heart blue. And it's also not the giant bone that he uses to end the battle, since the annoying dog steals the special attack and he winds up having to use a normal attack which features that giant bone. It's also important to note that this odd detail was included in a patch to the game, especially when other details added during those exact same patches were making Gaster a more official part of the game experience. You no longer had to hack into the game's fun value in order to experience Gaster as a real part of the game's lore. Given all of those details, I think it's likely that Toby Fox was strongly hinting at us to believe that Papyrus also has access to Gaster blasters. And with that, we've reached the end. Literally everything in 3 episodes that I could piece together about how all these characters connect. And when I stopped and looked at all this evidence to write these episodes, the most sensible conclusion was one that I initially thought was absolutely absurd. That Sans and Papyrus are two halves of the Gaster whole. It was, quite honestly, the neuroscience bit and the fact that they appeared out of nowhere that sold me on it. Were they created when Gaster fell into his machine? Or were they present throughout the whole series of experiments? It's not really clear. I personally like to think the former, but the pictures in Sans's laboratory of 3 smiling faces with the quote, "never forget," seems to imply the latter. Either way, this is how our story and the theory ends. Because as Toby Fox himself confirmed on Twitter, quote, "You've all seen the happiest outcome. Neither of them could fix the machine, no matter how hard they tried. No one can." Neither of them being the operative word there, because it means not just Sans, but both the brothers were involved in trying to fix the machine. The Skelebros wrote never forget on that picture because they don't want to end up like Goner Kid, or what Azrael warned them about, that by resetting the timeline over and over again, the memories start to fade from existence. They can't let themselves forget Gaster or their former origins, even though they'll never be able to bring him back or get their normal lives back, no matter how hard they try. It gives this game, even in the happiest, true pacifist ending, a new layer of tragedy, a new depth of story that is hidden to almost 82% of the game's players. It just shows how much care and love went into crafting this plot line, and gives testament to why everyone loves this game's story so very much. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
E mo la parte 4, dai. C'era un tizio che aveva fatto... Questo è Deltathlon, questo qua si va già oltre. Siamoci fermi. Vado, scusami, dopo me ne parli. Io devo fare pause in tutto e per tutto. Siamo arrivati a 4 ore di live un'altra volta, soltanto di yapping di gente. E non ho fatto un cazzo, io sono stato col culo seduto. E mi suda tantissimo qualunque cosa abbia a portata di mano. Circa bene, sempre non abbiamo finito, ci manca troppa roba, io ho bisogno di fare pausa. Mancano pezzi in realtà che dobbiamo ancora inserire, perciò molto probabilmente domani si farà un'altra live pomeridiana e ci leviamo il pensiero. Troppa roba, troppa roba. A me fa male la testa, ho bisogno di prendere aria e di togliermi le cuffie per un po'. Quindi, signori cari, è stato interessante. Decisamente avvincente. Manca un po' di roba, mancano le cose delle canzoni, le parodie. Terminal montage, mancherà qualche video delle speedrun e sicuramente quello da Undertale in 20 minuti che non mi avete aggiunto in playlist. Io sono abbastanza sicuro di non averlo anche skippato. Decisamente no. Magari qualche video di spiegazione della lore anche. Fatto ciò, direi che con Undertale ce ne possiamo... Undertale 20 Undertale. Ah, ok. Ma questo qua della genocide ending? Non è specificato come Undertale in 20 minuti, però se dovesse essere quello, buon per lui, I guess. Ma comunque mancano un po' di pezzi, secondo me, che vale la pena... Direi di mettere qualcosa per la lore. C'è un video privato anche che non appare, che qui non riesco a farvi vedere. Anche sì, un video non è disponibile, non è nascosto. Perciò, se mi trovate anche questo video, mi fate un favore. Io ho bisogno di staccare e far riposare un attimo la testa. Oggi devo andare a dormire presto, ho bisogno di dormire, non ce la posso fare più. E Stronger than You remake. Vabbè, si troverà da qualche parte. Ciao cari, buon proseguimento, ci becchiamo... Aspetta, c'è qualcuno che posso raidare mentre sono live? Let me check. Ah, c'è le baia, oppure... Vabbè, facciamo le baia a sto punto. Mi fa male tutto, mamma mia. Quindi è questo quello che siamo diventati, un canale di watch party. Succede anche ai migliori. Tante care cose, raga, ci vediamo domani sicuramente. Stasera non lo so, avevo in mente qualcos'altro da fare dopo una bella pausa ristoratorica, però ci penso su. Ci penso su. Tante care cose, buon proseguimento di serata.
Male, ma il Dottor Mario uccide, cioè, salvo cose particolari, uccide prima i stray. Grazie Matthew per il raid. Ho dato una guardata prima al suo grande